Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Strange Normal. My name is Brad Burnham. We talk about the stranger things that happen in your normal life to give you a biblical understanding of what's going on, and there is so much going on. You guys have no idea. Check this out. This is my notes for tonight. We have about 3 times the amount of content tonight. It's insane what has happened this week, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to show you exactly what's going on here because we understand the narrative, and we can kind of extrapolate on what's happening through the understanding of the Bible. So, before we get into that, though, I want to just double check that I have my guests here tonight. Let's go ahead and lock in and see who's here. Well, there's one of them. Eric, how are you doing?
I'm all right.
I wonder what happened to Matthew. I hope he's okay, but I guess he'll be here soon. We might have to do it squished like this because I can't pull you over to the other side while we're live like this. But let's get right into it. Let's check out what's going on because we got a lot happening tonight, and let's just play it. This is the intro, and one thing I wanted to tell everyone: this is kind of the outline tonight. Since this is such a unique night, we're going to play the intro. We're going to talk about the main story. We're going to tell you about what people are saying about the media, a little bit of history on what's going on. We're going to go into the idea of Christians pushing this idea of ufology. Real popular people in Christianity are pushing this idea. We're going to go into the skeptics and the believers in this, and we're also going to talk about what people are saying, just news anchors and the general propaganda being pushed by people that either know their propaganda or they don't. Also, we're going to talk about a strange ending to this whole thing. That's going to be the Vegas story if you guys are following the Discord. And we're gonna close this out with a weird scenario that shows that there's a lot more people that know exactly what's going on than people realize. Stay tuned for that. Let's go into the intro of the main story. Here we go.
He's a decorated U.S. veteran and a former high-ranking intelligence officer at the Pentagon. And now, for the first time on camera, he's blowing the whistle on something extraordinary.
There's a sophisticated disinformation campaign.
What our government is hiding from you and the world.
As fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
What is the truth about UFOs?
Last week, NASA held its first public meeting on UFOs, which, by the way, are now called officially unidentified aerial phenomena. This is a year after launching a study into unexplained sightings. And now tonight, a worldwide TV exclusive you will only see right here on News Nation. Bombshell claims from a military whistleblower published just this morning, alleging a secret UFO retrieval program within the U.S. government. David Grush, an Air Force veteran, former member of that task force and veteran of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, now formally blowing the whistle on secrets he says no one has ever shared publicly before. He is speaking one-on-one with investigative reporter Ross Coldhart, reporting for News Nation.
Well, the truth is out there. We've heard that before. And a military whistleblower is alleging a top secret program is withholding alien spacecraft from the government. Lauren Blanchard has more from Washington.
In a stunning out-of-this-world claim, a former U.S. intelligence official and Air Force veteran claims the government is covering up the truth about aliens.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
David Grush handed over extensive classified information to Congress and the intelligence community inspector general, saying it exposes top secret programs that have retrieved and studied debris from alien spacecraft, which he says have been intentionally withheld from lawmakers and the American public.
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft that have either landed or crashed.
His claims coming just days after a first-of-its-kind NASA hearing on UFO sightings around the world.
It's now our collective responsibility to investigate these occurrences with the rigorous scientific scrutiny that they deserve.
And some lawmakers agree the military and intelligence community need to be more transparent.
I think we should be open to hearing it and telling the American people as much as we possibly can. I think people are ready to hear whatever's out there. Maybe it's a man-made aircraft, maybe it's otherworldly. Stay tuned.
NASA is expected to release its final report on its UFO study by the end of July. In Washington, Lauren Blanchard, Fox 32, Chicago.
People are ready to hear whatever it is that's out there. That's what she said. People are ready to hear this. Wow, it looks like people have been, I mean, even the news knows this. People have been propagandized, if that's a word. They have been subtly moved into the idea that this is a real thing and that we need to move on this. That's what's amazing to this, because although it is a real thing, there's much more to it than we even, that most people understand. What are your thoughts, Eric?
Yeah, well, I thought it was interesting that the first part of the clip that he played, Grush immediately says there's a disinformation campaign going on. And that's so just that essentially is in a nutshell, the theme for the entire show. And I think the Strange Normal channel is because everything that Satan does is a disinformation campaign to keep people away from the truth. And so, what we're trying to do here is call out, hey, these are the pieces on the board. This is how we see them moving, and this is how it could align with Bible prophecy. That's where Jesus told us to keep on the watch. So we're supposed to watch things like this.
Yeah, and you're everyone that's just watching. If you're just subscribing, you got to go see Starfall. StarfallMovie.com. You can watch it there. You can watch it on this channel. It's the most popular movie documentary, half-hour show on this channel. You got to go see it, and it explains what we're talking about. It gives you the background. I'm going to show a little bit the logo real quick, just so you see exactly what we're talking about. Go there. Go to starfallmovie.com. Watch that. But I want to continue into this narrative. But I'm going to show this clip several times on this show because number one, it's a longer show. I'm going to cut this up into a few different segments. And so Eric and everyone that's going to stick with me tonight, it's going to be you're going to see this a few different times. This is what's going on. This is a former occultist that tells you exactly what's happening in this world right now.
And the priest told us, could I have a little bit more of your time? I want to do something very fascinating. He says the grain plane, the master's grain plane, for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the forces of good and evil. So we continued, after we expressed ourselves that we're deeply interested to know more about the activities of the spirits. And he said it's going to be done in a unique manner. This grain plane is going to take people are going to eat the stuff. Because he says spirits, demon spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet unless something seriously proper is done
to avoid it. I got to lengthen that clip because that's always happens. But one thing we haven't seen yet. So sorry, Eric, just a second. Let me say one thing. One thing we haven't seen yet is a dramatic increase in disasters, and I think we already are seeing that in some in the news. But that's what's happening. That's what's happening. And I think it's fascinating that we have not only the Bible to tell us of the deception that's coming, but we also have this guy his name is Roger Murnau. Anyway, you're going to say something, Eric.
No, that's what I was going to get to. I mean, we always show that clip, but I wanted to make sure we mention his name and his testimony that clip is pulled from for anybody watching that's interested is Trip into the Supernatural. It's on YouTube. The full thing is a little over 3 hours. And speaking for myself, I can watch the whole thing through and not even need a break. It's that riveting. So watch it for yourself. See for yourself if you believe what he's saying. And the interesting thing is that this, from the quality of the video, I would imagine this video was made in like the 80s. Yeah. Maybe early 90s. The events that he's talking about when he learned this information was immediately after World War II. So that's this is not something new that that we figured out recently, like, hey, this is coming. Like, people have been talking about this and people have been warning about this, and scripture has warned about this for far longer than, anybody alive now has been around. So that's what, check it out and decide for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get into the main story now. This is it. And you're not going to find this anywhere else because we have subscription to something that allows us to watch every news channel on planet Earth. And we grab clips from there, check them out, make sure they're not going to ding us for being content that we can't put on YouTube, and we show them to you. So this is a longer clip of the original clip, at least the longest one that's aired yet. There's a longer one I hear that's going to air on Sunday, this Sunday. But on News Nation, they're the ones that are kind of breaking the video of this thing. We're going to watch this. This is a 12-minute clip. We might stop it. We might not. So get ready. Get your popcorn out. This is something. Here we go.
Reaction on Capitol Hill this evening to News Nation's exclusive interview with the UFO whistleblower who says America has a crash retrieval program with non-human craft in its possession, and that it's kept this secret from Congress and the American public. In April, Congress held its first public hearing on UFOs in more than 50 years. Several Navy pilots testified they had seen and recorded aircraft moving through the air in ways no human-made aircraft could. At that time, witnesses from the Pentagon told the senators there is, quote, no credible evidence of extraterrestrial activity linked to UFO sightings. News Nation's senior national correspondent Brian Enton joins us again tonight. And Brian, it's not just the Oversight Committee chairman who's talking. And by the way, he just issued a statement.
He did. Lots of members of Congress have been talking about this today. We just got a statement from the House Oversight Committee talking about the recent claims by a whistleblower, now saying officially that they are in the early stages of planning a hearing. That statement just coming in within the last 10 minutes or so. Really what whistleblower David Grush said yesterday, it was just the beginning. Tonight, he explains how they know these craft are not human. He tells us about other countries who also have crash retrieval programs and why he says some of the non-human life may not be friendly. New revelations from whistleblower David Grush, who says America has a UFO crash retrieval program and non-human craft in its possession. Now Grush is shedding light on exactly how the secret government program knows the craft are not of this world.
Why do you know it's exotic?
Based on the very specific properties that I was briefed on, isotopic ratios that would have to be engineered for it to be at those levels, but also just extremely strange, heavy atomic metal, high up in the periodic table arrangements that we don't understand, what the emergent properties are, but there's just a very strange mix of elements.
So you're absolutely sure that the materials that these craft are made of are clearly not of this earth?
Yeah, they're sophisticatedly engineered, certainly not by humans.
David Grush is a former high-level intelligence officer, Air Force veteran, and member of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, the U.S. task force that investigates UFOs. But he says another secret government program exists to study crashed crafts.
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
Grush sat down with investigative journalist Ross Coulthart, who is reporting for News Nation on the bombshell whistleblower complaint filed with Congress and the Intelligence Community Inspector General. According to the complaint, in July 2021, Mr. Grush confidentially provided UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena related classified information, to the Department of Defense Inspector General. At that time, Mr. Grush communicated classified information about the improper withholding and or concealment of classified material from the U.S. Congress by certain IC elements. News Nation has confirmed Grush's credentials, but he says he can't show us the proof of the alien craft for national security reasons. In a somewhat frightening revelation, Grush claims the non-human species may not be friendly.
I've been told that there have been attempts to bring down craft, that we've acted offensively against non-human craft.
There have been instances, and there are certain techniques.
Have human beings been hurt or killed by a non-human intelligence?
While I can't get into the specifics because that would reveal certain U.S. classified operations, I was briefed by a few individuals on the program that there were malevolent events like that.
Grush says he has to be careful about providing detail. He shared this letter with us from the Department of Defense giving him permission to do the interview with News Nation. It says the interview questions are approved for public release. However, this approval does not include any photograph, picture, exhibit, caption, or other supplemental material not specifically approved by this office. Our concurrence for release does not imply DoD endorsement or factual accuracy of the material. Grush says the United States is not the only country that has encountered non-human intelligence. He says our geopolitical rivals have their own crash retrieval programs.
We're in a competition with their adversaries to understand this, and it's a multi-decade Cold War that has been under our nose for so long, and there is no good way to level the playing field and hold other nation states accountable if they're doing unethical or illicit activity as it relates to this subject. And I think the obtuse secrecy is actually putting us in a very dangerous position where a country might make a breakthrough that say it's an adversary of ours. And it is so destabilizing.
The secrecy is the main reason Grush says he is coming forward. He's concerned Congress is being kept in the dark, and it's a matter of national security.
This is not a question I had on my bingo card last week. It is not my sweet spot. Although I am a defense appropriator, I am part of classified briefings. This is nothing that has come up.
I saw the report. It sounds fascinating, but if there's anything there, we got to investigate. Just like we would investigate a foreign country that has a balloon over our sky.
And again, Chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, says they do intend to have hearings on UFOs, and we just learned the committee confirming that they are in the preliminary stages of getting those hearings together. And regardless of whether you believe David Grush, this really is an emerging area. Congress has been looking to this into the past, and clearly, based on what we've seen today, they're taking this seriously. They want to look into it.
So the Department of Defense gave David Grush permission to talk about this? Did they know what he was going to say?
They did, and we have that letter, which is interesting. When you're at the level he was at and you have that kind of classified information, he was concerned, obviously, breaking the law and come out and talk about things. So he told them what he intended to talk about, and they essentially gave him permission in that letter, as you heard, only saying not to share specific photos or any sort of visual aids. But they also said in that letter, we're also not saying that what you're saying is true either.
Right.
Which is important.
Right. And yet still I keep coming back to the point, over and over he says, I was briefed on these non-human aircraft. I was briefed on attacks of some kind between our pilots or our defense and these non-human aircraft. He never saw this firsthand. Isn't this all secondhand information?
Yeah.
Somebody told me?
It is essentially, and I'm glad you're bringing that up again. I mean, we can confirm his credentials. Very, very high-level U.S. intelligence officer, Air Force veteran, on the task force that investigates UFOs, but he was not in this specific program. He didn't see the craft for himself. These are all accounts based on people who he spoke to.
Okay. Brian Enton, thanks so much for your reporting tonight. And now let's bring in investigative journalist and co-host of the Weaponized podcast, Jeremy Corbell. Jeremy, the whistleblower, David Grush, is really making some extraordinary claims here. Why do you think people should take this seriously?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm glad that his account is now being heard. Mr. Grush came to George Knapp and me first about 14 months ago, and he appeared to be the subject of reprisal. So we vetted him and held his account in confidence. We can say for sure Dave is who he says he is. He was in the position that he says that he was in. He had access to what he says he had access to. And by all accounts, Dave appears to be credible. So it would be reckless for us to not take his claims seriously, and his claims should be investigated by AARO. AARO must verify or disprove, that is their job, what Mr. Grush is talking about. So I think everybody should look at this and understand it from the point of view that this is something we can now look at and have investigated. It is out, and he filed a classified complaint under oath, and the Intelligence Community Inspector General said that he found the complaint urgent and credible.
Jeremy, how problematic is it that everything that David Grush is saying here is not firsthand knowledge, that he himself didn't actually see these non-human craft?
I think it gives weight to a lot of the people that have come forward and talked about having direct firsthand experience. That should be investigated now, because people have come forward. And by the way, I mean, it's very courageous of Mr. Grush to come forward in this manner. But there's a lot of people, whistleblowers, who have come forward to me and George Knapp and others, and they've told their accounts. So now, if it's true, this is something that can be and must be looked at by the mechanisms of government, and also the Whistleblower Protection Act that has been put forward in the National Defense Authorization Act. I mean, this is what it's for.
The Inspector General, as you noted, is taking this complaint of reprisals for going public seriously. Members of Congress are now asking today, and even just as recently as 10 minutes ago, giving a statement asking for more information, pledging to hold hearings. The public statements thus far from the Pentagon, however, are carefully worded, that there is, quote, no verifiable information, no credible evidence of extraterrestrial life. They do not say it's not true.
Yeah, they actually, if you really look at their words, they say that they have not found that. And I think what is important about what Mr. Grush is saying is that they now know where to look. And so I think that's the issue here. Look, this feels like an episode of Don't Look Up, you know, that movie. We have been telling you, people and reporters, investigators have been saying that this is a real issue, that we need to look at this. And so finally, Congress and Senate and legislation has been put in place. Well, now it's time. Now we're seeing that this is an issue that must be investigated.
The former Navy pilot Ryan Graves said last night on this show that pilots are still, to this day, today, this week, being discouraged from coming forward with evidence of UFOs, or UAPs as they're now called. Why is that? We've got Congress holding hearings for the first time in 50 years. NASA just held a hearing. Why are witnesses still feeling stigmatized when they step forward?
Because it is a topic that produces stigma. But I'm going to tell you something that goes a step further, because it's true. What Ryan Graves said is accurate. It is also accurate that some pilots are being asked to scrub some data. And why that would be done, that is a big problem. Is it just stigma? Is it because people want to go on deployment and don't want to have to report this up the chain of command? As somebody that people come to, whistleblowers, witnesses, direct eyewitnesses, I can tell you that this stigma is corrosive to public trust and also just to looking at the facts.
Well, I hopefully we'll have some hearings in Congress and get more to the bottom of what those facts may be. Jeremy Corbell, thank you.
We will be seeing that.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Always great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for covering the topic.
All right, and coming up,
he cracks me up. He's so interruptive sometimes that she seemed almost like, all right, we're done. Oh, look, it's Mikey. Can we hear you, Mikey? Uh-oh. He might not be completely in here yet. But
I hear him.
You hear him? Hey, okay.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, good. We were just getting done with the, I don't know if you were here and how long you were here, Mikey, but we were getting down with the main story. This is about a 12-minute clip that we went over that covered kind of everything that we're going to cover. But again, we're going to cover a lot more than this, because going to tell us what the media is not telling us, the history behind this, believable witnesses, Christians that are pushing this message, how this is religious, skeptics, and what people are saying about it, and of course, a very strange conclusion. As we talk about the Vegas incident that happened this week. But that's coming up here in a second. But obviously, if you are a follower of this channel, maybe even you guys have already heard this story. Let me recap exactly what they were saying real quick. Second, they said no credible evidence. I thought that was interesting, because the guy that came forward, he seems to be a high-level official. One of the news anchors said he was the highest level security. He had the highest level security in the military. And Eric, you're in the military, so I thought I'd ask you about that in a moment. But he also acted officially. So this is an official nod saying you can go out and talk about this. I don't know if that makes him a whistleblower, but we're going to talk about that a little bit as time goes on in this episode too. So it's very, very interesting because we've seen whistleblowers from the Clintons, we've seen whistleblowers from the FBI, we've seen all this stuff that is happening throughout the news, but never have we seen a whistleblower that acts like this, that is almost happy to do it and has official whistleblower privilege from the Pentagon. What's going on here? Is this something that is something that we need to look into, or is it just how the military operates? What are your thoughts, Eric?
Also, hat tip to Joe Jordan in the chat because he says obviously Bob Lazar was not convincing enough, so they bring out a guy with high credentials, and I was kind of thinking similar lines. Like we've had a steady drip of this where it's been, before when I was a kid, this was on supermarket tabloids, the tabloid section, and others have talked about how like the CIA Operation Mockingbird in bed with the media and basically the entire mainstream media is an intelligence operation, a psyop against not just the U.S. people, but this happens in other countries. And it's like you can see there's no UFO stuff in tabloids anymore. Now it's on the mainstream news, and we've had different whistleblowers, and now we're up to this, supposedly high-ranking Air Force guy. I was trying to find his rank. I can't seem to find it though. It sounds like it says combat officer, veteran of Afghanistan, so some kind of officer. I think people get hung up on this, I blame movies for this, the whole high clearance thing or whatever. We got a clip from Dan Bongino. He'll talk about it. He had a TS-SCI clearance. That's top secret, sensitive, compartmentalized information. I had a secret clearance when I was in the military. TS-SCI is as high as it goes. So that doesn't mean you have access to every special access program that's out there. You have to be read into each specific program. But you have the ability to be read into it. So maybe when they say high clearance, he was read into a program that maybe only a really few were read into. But this idea of, some crazy name, Black Watch Plaid clearance level, it just doesn't exist in the military. That's all from the movies. So.
Okay. All right. What are your thoughts, Mikey?
Yeah, I was thinking when we were talking about this guy being the whistleblower. The last time I remember like a whistleblower was Snowden, and he had to flee the country, and he was like, everything he did was not mainstream media. It was all like, I don't know, Rumble or news from other countries and stuff. This seems more like they're setting the stage. They're telling the public, this is the official narrative and this is what you need to believe because we're the government and we're telling you. But we're also making it look like we're giving you some secret knowledge, It's just like the way I was when I was looking into this as a kid and I saw all these like Fox, we're going to watch the alien autopsy. And I'm like, yeah, I knew it was real, And I thought that, this media is releasing something secret. I didn't realize it was all controlled back then. And I thought that I was getting something secret that maybe, not everybody was onto, but this is how they do it. They let out the leaks.
Interesting.
To make you feel like you're onto something. Yeah.
You bring up a good point, Mikey, because, and let's clarify who we mean by when we say they, it's fallen angels, it's demons working with Satan. So they have been studying human psychology since humans have been around, and they know there's certain types of people who will respond like you and I respond, Mikey. It's like, oh, we're in some crazy rabbit hole, some site, some message boards. Like, wow, this is the truth that nobody else knows. And there's a vast other amount of people that just will watch the news, and it has to come from a definitive source. And so now, this is the first time I think that I've seen it coming from both places at the same time, which I think is interesting.
That is a good point. Because I remember there's like, when I started trying to leak things out or tell people about New World Order and stuff like that, they're like, well, I won't believe it until they tell us. I'm like, that's what, when the news tells you or something. Okay. But yeah, I see you made a really good point.
The in the chat, I see Joe Jordan in the chat. I want to say nod my head to him. I appreciate all his work. He has an amazing book out, and we have. He said 2 Thessalonians 2:10-13. I'm going to read 9 as well. Even him, those whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness and of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause, God shall send them a strong delusion, that they may believe a lie, that they all might be damned, who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. But we are bound to give thanks always to God for you, brethren, beloved of the Lord, because God hath from the beginning chose you to salvation through the sanctification of the Spirit and belief of the truth. So I think it's interesting because the deception goes far and beyond this, because it's going to become, according to Revelation, very much spiritual, very much a religious worship. If you read Revelation 13, it goes into how if you don't worship this thing that's coming, it will the people will decide they want to kill you. That's where we're going, and we're already seeing inklings of that as people are pushed into the idea that if you don't do what they say, you're canceled. That's going to go far and beyond as this Holy Spirit is removed from this earth. But go ahead.
Real quick, I want to read Hosea 4:6 because it says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children." So destroyed for lack of knowledge, and not because the knowledge is not out there. God has always made the knowledge out there. It's in his word. I mean, you can read his word and then look at current events, and you can tie them directly to what's written. It's just that people aren't looking. And so, if you're watching this and you know how this fits into Bible prophecy, you understand what's going on, share it with people, plant seeds and open people's eyes, because you never know what's going to be. You tell them now, and then they see something 6 months, a year later when things get, progress, and that might be the thing that turns them to Christ. So,
yeah, and absolutely. And it's not like we all agree with exactly what's going on, even together, us three on this channel. So we welcome, this is the Strange Normal Research Group. That's what we call our Discord group. If you want to join that Discord, it's patreon.com/Strange Normal. We'll get you right in. But what we do, we present ideas, we present, and we try to understand what's going on through the lens of the Bible. And since we know that this is a part of Bible prophecy, and this will be a big deal someday, I don't have a problem with the idea of it being physical someday. Absolutely not. Something big could happen with it being physical. And I wonder if, and I need to do a little more study on this, but I wonder if it could be physical now. And so I don't know. I don't know if what they're going to find is a complete lie. Sure sounds like it right now because he doesn't have any evidence. Or if what they're going to find is that many, many countries have been obtaining technology. We've had a huge boom in technology in the last only a few hundred years.
Oh, yeah.
Why? We've been lobbing, cannonballs at each other for the last thousands of years, and all of a sudden now we can shoot laser beams. Why is that? So it makes me wonder. It just makes me wonder if maybe we have had technology increase because of something. And so here's the thing. Here's the gotcha. And I was going to wait till the end to kind of talk about this, but I think as we go on and look at the evidence through here, I think that we should seed this idea, because what if, again, research, I'm not saying this is factual, but what if the idea that this that we have been looking into this has been these plants by the demonic realm to increase our knowledge so they can destroy the earth someday through nuclear blasts, through weaponizing space, and through all the stuff that we couldn't do as regular humans that were just mowing lawns and making gardens. What if that's had to have been done previously in order to continue his efforts? And because of that only, we're in this predicament we have today. There's much more to it. I'm going to continue on with that theory because I don't know. We're going to read the Bible. We're going to go through it. There's a verse that Joe Jordan sent me last night when I was thinking about this that he said maybe this plays into it and it might contradict what I said. So let's put on our thinking caps, think about it theologically, and let's continue as we go on through these scenes. So unless you guys,
tinfoil hat.
The tinfoil hat, yeah, absolutely. So let's continue on here, unless you guys have any comments.
No, I did want to just say that both those verses you guys brought up, Joe, Jordan, and what you brought up in Hosea, it really pertains to this whole scenario. You know, it's like they rejected the truth. What we're doing here, we're saying, look, this is spiritual, this is a deception. And how many people have we talked to that say that we're ignorant and closed-minded and these things are good and they've never done any harm? They're rejecting the truth. They have not a love of the truth, so that they will believe in this giant deception, this delusion. You can just totally see how it, when you look at those verses, it totally pertains to what we're about to be facing.
Eric, any thoughts?
Yeah, it kind of made me think of Daniel 12:4 at the end of it, and many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Daniel's prophecy is talking about the time of the end. And it kind of, if you look at human history, when Roger Morneau talks about this, Satan had to change his tactic because he knew that there was an industrial revolution coming, and it kind of had to come because before the Industrial Revolution, before the Enlightenment, people were still very grounded in not necessarily scripture, but the belief in the supernatural. And Satan had to replace that, and he succeeded with evolution and technology. So now that like science with a capital S trademarked is people's God, follow the science. Yes. We have all this technology, things can evolve, and they got here, on other planets, and they came here via technology. Now the stage has been set for people to accept, anything other than a biblical interpretation of the world.
Fascinating.
Yeah, you brought that up, Brad, in the music documentary, I think, talking about how people used to believe in black cats in the 13th floor and all that. There was a time where people just had a belief in superstitious, spiritual, things like that, but now it's all like, no, I'm atheist. If it's not, if I can't put it in a test tube, I don't believe it or whatever. But now we're getting more, well, I don't know. There is a lot of a spiritual thing coming back too with the whole New Age movement and all that.
Yeah, it is coming back, and it's a different form. Before it was pranksters, where you had don't step on the crack, or you'll break your mother's back, and all this other stuff, or don't throw salt over your shoulder to get rid of vampires, or I don't know. People had all kinds of strange beliefs back then because there was a lot of spiritualism. But now that's kind of gone away because a different form of spiritualism had to come in. And so, anyway, we're going to get more into that in just a second. But let's play this next clip. This is a continuation. They keep releasing more clips about this guy, and I think they're gonna release the whole documentary on Sunday. But this is what the guy says. Listen to this. This is crazy. Second clip about the football-sized UFO. Check this out.
Even more new revelations from former Air Force intelligence officer turned whistleblower David Grush, detailing never-before-shared secrets over what he claims is a government cover-up about flying aircraft that couldn't have been made by human hands.
A lot of them were very large, yeah. Like a football field kind of size. And I remember interviewing these personnel. I'm like, either these people are lying to me, they're having a psychotic break, or this is some crazy but true stuff that's happening, and I have no good explanation that's prosaic at all for this. I mean, this is like tangible technical craft they're seeing up close and personal in some cases when I interviewed people.
Grush broke his silence in a world TV exclusive with News Nation this week. The former intel officer, privy to top secret information, claims the government has in its possession pieces of aircraft that didn't originate on Earth, and has been keeping it from the public.
The wind's 120 knots from the west. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow.
But Grush says he's seen a lot more that should be public as well.
I find it very concerning from a transparency perspective that all that the department has declassified were those 3 famous videos. There are more concerning videos that left me with a lot of questions, yeah.
Here on Capitol Hill, lawmakers told News Nation first that soon there will be hearings to look deeper into the UAP reports, unidentified aerial phenomenon, and those hearings will include Grush's story. Congressman Tim Burchett, one of 2 House members who will lead that probe, says he doesn't believe military intelligence is open about all it knows to the public or to Congress.
You have an aircraft that is being chased by military, our best pilots in the world, bar none, and they're defying our laws of physics. We've got something in our airspace that our military does not control.
Senator Mike Rounds, who serves on the Armed Services Committee, says some of what Grush revealed is concerning and, if accurate, should be considered a potential threat to national security.
It's something that you have to be aware of. You can't take it lightly if there is a suggestion that there's a technology that we're not familiar with.
And Elizabeth, as we reported there, we scooped yesterday, Congress is going to be taking some action, holding hearings, doing some investigation that they say will include some of David Grush's story. So interesting there. We know that that is already beginning the planning of that process. By the way, someone else who's familiar with sending things up to space, Elon Musk, weighed in saying simply, I have seen zero evidence of aliens for what it's worth. So that is Musk's thought on this, for whatever that is worth.
On his Johnson to space? Okay. Thanks so much, Joe Khalil.
So there you go. So they have, whoa, we lost one. Okay, well, he's gone. So I'm not sure what's going on there. We'll have to wait until he comes back. But Matthew's going to join us really quick. He might be hiding. I'm not sure what's going on, but there he is. Now I can see
Hello?
him. Hello. Hello,
I was
Matthew.
Gonna do a bit. You ruined my bit, Bradley.
I thought I was seeing a chair with a towel
That's
on
what
it.
that
I was like,
no, this was my bit. I was gonna have an entrance. I was gonna be like, there was a time when strange and normal were completely separate entities, but now we've entered into a time of strange normal. But you know,
welcome. 15 minutes late for that.
Yeah, I know. Apologies. It's been a busy day here in my household, but it's an exciting time.
absolutely.
It's a very exciting time.
And we're only 1/8
so
of the way
grateful to
through
be
this
here.
program, and we're already 50
very
minutes
nice.
into it. So you guys are welcome to leave anytime. I'm just letting you know right now, it's going to be a late night, and we're probably going to cut the best parts out of this and upload them for those that don't and can't stay this long. So just letting you know. It's going to be a good show, though. We got lots to show you. So that's what's going on. That's more of that is coming out this Sunday. We're gonna have the best parts, if not the whole thing, built for you right here next week for sure. Do you guys have any thoughts on that clip? Otherwise, I'm gonna move on to other than Elon Musk saying, "Hey, I haven't seen any aliens." So
I just think it's interesting that they're saying things like, "Look, our best pilots are chasing these things and they defy physics." It's alien. How come, like, okay, aliens are physical, so why are you saying if it defies physics, then it's aliens? Like, we should be saying, hey, this is spiritual in nature. Like, this is interdimensional. This is something that's not of this realm instead of just not of this planet and it's from another world or something. Like, how come they're not saying that? They're not even alluding to, you know what, it could be something physical. These things are doing things that defy physics.
that's
I mean,
fascinating.
spiritual is what I'm going to say.
Yeah. And I think there's a guy named John D'Souza who was the FBI agent. He was the original X-Files procurer, I guess you could say, for the first season. He's, I believe, actually a Christian. He has a book out that talks about ultra. I forget what it is. I haven't read it. I don't know if it's how to the Bible it is, but I'm curious. So it's ultra beings, I forget the name they use, ultra spirits, whatever it is. But that's interesting. So what about the news? Is the news controlled? Tucker Carlson thinks so.
Yes.
And he's very, very
Just
convinced.
shave 20 minutes off the show. Yes, it's all controlled. Moving on.
And he's obviously he's not on Fox anymore, and so he has taken on Twitter. And so this is his latest about this amazing story on Twitter from Tucker Carlson. Check this out.
Yesterday, for example, a former Air Force officer who worked for years in military intelligence came forward as a whistleblower to reveal that the U.S. government has physical evidence of crashed non-human-made aircraft, as well as the bodies of the pilots who flew those aircraft. The Pentagon has spent decades studying these otherworldly remains in order to build more technologically advanced weapons systems. Okay, that's what the former intel officer revealed, and it was clear he was telling the truth. In other words, UFOs are actually real, and apparently so is extraterrestrial life. Now we know. In a normal country, this news would qualify as a bombshell, the story of the millennium. But in our country, it doesn't. The whistleblower's account ran on a technology website called The Debrief, which you've probably never heard of. The Washington Post had that story, but decided not to run it. The New York Times, meanwhile, just pretended it never happened. On the front page of the New York Times website this morning, there were 5 stories about Ukraine, as well as 4 stories apiece about Donald Trump, trans people, and climate change, the usual lineup. There was nothing at all about how an alien species is flying hypersonic aircraft over our cities. Not one word. So if you're wondering why our country seems so dysfunctional, this is a big part of the reason. Nobody knows what's happening. A small group of people control access to all relevant information, and the rest of us don't know. We're allowed to yap all we want about racism, but go ahead and talk about something that really matters and see what happens. If you keep it up, they'll make you be quiet. Trust us. That's how they maintain control.
Oh, he's hitting some hard buttons right there. I think that's fascinating. Oh.
So that stream was on Twitter, like that's where he streams now.
Yeah, I guess he's got some deal with Elon, and Elon reached out to the CNN guy.
No, he does not have a contract with Elon.
Oh, really?
To be clear about it, yeah, he's just doing it on his own.
Huh. Interesting, because I know Elon reached out to him.
There's a lawsuit. They're suing. Fox is suing him now because supposed breach of contract. But I don't know how that's going to go because if he doesn't have a contract and he's just a private citizen, there could be First Amendment stuff. I don't know. It's going to be interesting though.
Wow. Huh. But he's definitely not.
What do you think about Tucker? You trust him? You think he's a gatekeeper? Is he part of? I mean, he could be another whistleblower too. You know.
Oh,
let's talk about the Kabbalah bracelet, Matthew. Why don't you take that one?
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
he could be another Alex Jones or something.
Yeah, he's been pictured wearing a red Kabbalah bracelet, which, that's indicative that people wear it for like fortune to keep bad spirits away. People are into the Kabbalah, so he's definitely had that. But even more than wearing that bracelet, I just think about his position and I think about what he preaches. He's not necessarily driving people towards Christ, and Jesus said that he who does not gather with me scatters abroad. So it's very hard for me to take anybody in a position of celebrity seriously on spiritual matters unless they completely renounce and walk away. It's funny, Eric and I were just talking earlier about this. There's William Miller, right, of the Millerites. He was a Freemason before he became a Christian. But the difference between him and, say, Joseph Smith, who was a Freemason and never renounced his ties to the lodge, William Miller came out and said, I am no longer a Freemason. I want nothing to do with this. I am giving my life to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. This is the truth. So, take it into the modern day. We have a ton of people who are idolized, and I believe that Tucker is idolized,
Mm-hmm.
He could be looked at as a god of truth. He is veritas incarnate, so to speak. And they hang on his every word as if it is biblical, which I think it's just interesting because if I was listening to a bit of the broadcast beforehand, we're wrestling against these evil spirits who are maneuvering people into different positions. It's very possible that you put someone in Fox News, you build up their credibility, you get them to have a massive audience, the biggest audience that any of their anchors have ever had. Like, people thought back in the day, Bill O'Reilly. I remember Bill O'Reilly. My grandparents would watch him.
Huh?
But his following is nothing compared to Tucker Carlson's.
Yeah.
And that's proved. I mean, I don't even know how many views. The last time I looked at that Twitter video, it was over 90 million views. Over 90 million. It's probably topped 100 million at this point. And what is he saying in this? He's saying UFOs are real, extraterrestrial life is real. That's it. He wasn't even mincing about with it. Like, this is evidence that it could possibly be something. No, he just straight up said there's extraterrestrial life. Aliens exist. And if you've watched this show, you've seen us kind of dissect a little bit of Tucker's behind the scenes stuff. He takes it very seriously. And I have a feeling that his spiritualism is more tied to something to do with the extraterrestrials in the same way that New Agers look at it and ufologists look at it. So that's what I would say about Tucker Carlson.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Anybody else have any
Yeah,
comments?
I mean, yeah, what better way? Like if you were this master deceiver and you're trying to get the whole world in on this, what would be better, to have some talking head on Fox News say aliens are real, or a guy say, I had to leave controlled mainstream media to tell you this message, aliens are real? People are going to gravitate towards that because they're going to say, look, he's telling us something that the media tried to shut him up on, and now we're getting the truth. It's this whole like reverse psychology. This is psychological warfare 101, man. Disinformation, misinformation, all this stuff. They use all these tactics to make you believe it. And I just think that this is a perfect plan.
I can't remember who said it, but there's a CIA or former CIA officer, I think he was a CIA officer, but basically the quote is something along the lines of, we will know our disinformation campaign has succeeded when everything the American people believe is a lie. That is like, and so think of how many lies are out there that we just, in the past 3-4 years, lies that they got people to believe. And Matt and I were actually just talking about, so I kind of default to, if it's out in being, especially in the mainstream, any information, it's being presented for a reason. It's been allowed to be presented. There's this concept in the occult circles of authorized disclosure.
Right.
So they're willing to feed some of their own to the wolves. Like you look at Harvey Weinstein and the whole Me Too or whatever. It's like, yeah, we'll give the people, the plebs, somebody to eat, so they don't focus on the real stuff that's going on. And there's also the thought of people aren't getting Epsteined over leaking UFO information, right? The whole idea of like the X-Files and like the government's going to kill you or something, that you're going to have a plane crash or something like that. That's not happening. This is being talked about in the open. The things that people are getting offed for are the things that Epstein was involved in, trying to expose that kind of stuff. That's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. But it's like, if this guy is perfectly calm, sitting here like, oh, I'm a whistleblower. You have like actual whistleblowers who, I don't know if you just watched the congressional hearings recently, the FBI whistleblowers, like they're having their pay disrupted. They're having their entire like lives ruined. They're being treated like garbage. So it's interesting, not only what's allowed in the mainstream, but how the whistleblowers are being treated by both the mainstream media and the government, depending on what they have to say.
Okay. I have a show, and we've only gotten through this much of it so far, and I have to go down to here.
Let's go to the next clip. Come on.
We got more on the back, so let's get going. We're going to have to limit our conversations down to the sections that I have. Otherwise, this is going to be an 8-hour program. I want to say a bit, too, because I got stuff about theory. But anyway, let's go. We're at 93 concurrent viewers, and I appreciate everyone in here that's already watching. You guys are giving me the terms that I was looking for, ultra-dimensional and all that stuff. Thank you so much. Please hit that like button. That's how it gets out to more people. I'm convinced the more likes you get, somehow it pushes the live stream further. I've seen that happen. Thanks for hitting that like button. Really do appreciate it. I pushed that in the chat just a minute ago, and we got 10 more concurrent viewers. Fantastic. So let's continue on with the next clip here. Let's look into the history of this real quick, because this is interesting. Where did this start? And whether you believe it's propaganda or these things are physical and they're here now, it's definitely a demonic entity, a demonic experience. But whether it's physical or spiritual or a lie, we don't know. So let's look into what they have said about it, and we can put the narrative together. Here we go.
Roswell may not have been the first event. And well known. I mean, there's been some reporting internationally as well that there have been some crashed vehicles, and they were obtained by local authorities, and there was some scientific study done on them. I want to be very careful not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I've seen personally some documentation that's very compelling from a particular foreign country where they had a recovery of a vehicle, and they had some countries conducting scientific analysis on it, and after World War II, allegedly parts of that vehicle were brought to the United States.
Yeah,
I think I know what country that was.
It was Italy.
Yeah, that's as it was explained to me. I saw some documentation. Look, I don't want to get too much into the conspiracy side of the house. There is some documentation that has been validated that was from Mussolini himself, and it's authentic. It's been proven to be authentic. The documentation, so certainly interesting.
I don't know, guys. There might be some physical plants out here, physical things. I don't know. But what I think is interesting, and this is the theory I'm running with. China. Why am I going to China? China and Ukraine. Those are big wars that are either going to happen or have been right now. And the reason why I'm bringing those up is because the military doesn't really, or the Defense Department, let's say that way, doesn't really care about UFOs. They don't care about anything else but keeping America safe. And so they're never going to actually say anything about anything unless it pertains to getting better at what they do, or if they somehow they can fight or win a war. Keep America on top, as Trump said, America #1. So I think what's happening here is if these things, I'm going to say if these things are physical deceptions, and they have been in the grasp of the United States, as well as probably other countries. Let's just put that on the table as well. Then the only reason the military would release this right now is that they're not getting anywhere. And they need the highest scientists to get rid of the stupidity of the lore in their heads and reach out and help figure out how to get better at obtaining this technology so they can win a war. How do you get anti-gravity? I mean, I'm just throwing it out there because who knows what it could be. People are saying things like we got nukes from this technology. We got LEDs from technology. Who knows? Who knows? But what if? I'm just saying, what if these people are saying, we've spent 90 years or 40 years or however long it's been trying to reverse engineer this stupid thing. We need our best minds on this, and our best minds are in the military. How do we get rid of the stigma? Well, let's release it to the public. I don't know. I'm not willing to go down far down that rabbit trail until we see more evidence, until we actually see these things. And I think that's going to be coming out, if true, in the next couple of weeks. Because, man, this broke. If this is the highest, one of the highest officials, and now you got his peons underneath are now released due to the laws to go and talk about this. Well, I think we're going to see some amazing stuff if it's true. So let's leave it there.
Yeah. I kind of feel like he might be another he's in front of mainstream media and he's almost like a whistleblower too. I think there's like the Stephen Greers out there who they really believe that these things are, you can channel them and all that. They're on that train and they really do believe that. But guys like this, I don't know. I think they could be part of the whole deception, putting this message out there, especially because they're getting mainstream, recognition like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me go on to the next clip, guys. Hold that thought. If you have any thoughts, let's see what Ryan Graves says. Just a real quick clip of him, and we'll see what he says about what he has seen in the past about this.
Can you describe some of your own experiences with UFOs?
Certainly. As an F-18 pilot, we were flying off the coast of Virginia Beach, and we were almost on a daily basis seeing on our radar, on our cameras, and with our eyeballs, objects that weren't supposed to be there. We were seeing dark gray or black cubes inside of clear spheres that were operating anywhere from stationary, zero airspeed, even in the wind, all the way up to upwards of 1.1 to 1.2 Mach, which I've personally witnessed.
Fascinating. Okay. So, and that's Lieutenant Ryan Graves. We've featured him on the channel before, doing a whole episode on what he has seen. I'm going to run into the next clip too, and we'll have a discussion right after that. The next clip is Dan Evans from NASA talking about how NASA is looking into this issue. Let's look and see what he said in the past.
Let's take a deeper dive into the realm of UFOs. Joining us to follow up here is special guest Dan Evans with NASA. Hi, Dan. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Brooke, how are you?
Very good. All right, so let's dive in here. What were the key takeaways from this panel? Are there UFOs out there?
It's a great question. Well, and first off, you cannot fail to be captivated by these military pilot accounts and videos of these seemingly mysterious objects shooting around in our airspace. What we're trying to do at NASA is to get to the bottom of the mystery, and it's very clear to us that this isn't just a national security issue, but it's a scientific one also. So we brought in a team, an all-star panel of experts, and we asked them to look into these phenomena with a scientific lens. And while a small fraction of these events make you raise your eyebrows, all right, the main conclusion of the panel is that for the most part, we lack sufficient data to draw firm conclusions. So the main job of our group of experts is to advise us at NASA on how to develop a roadmap to get the data we need to resolve this issue once and for all.
Dan Evans talking about those strange round things that I think are very spiritual, that are floating around in the atmosphere that they can't figure out why it stands still in a hurricane. What do you guys think about that?
I don't trust anybody that you can see the whites all the way around their eyes like this.
I didn't know if someone was going to bring that up. For a second, I thought he was like AI generated because he didn't blink for a really long time. And then at the very end, he was like short-circuiting. It's like, blink, man, blink. They're in his ear.
Notice the difference between, so just think back, the difference between the demeanor and the body language of Lieutenant Graves versus, what's his name, David Grush. You know, to me, it just seems like Grush he knows he's on TV. It's like he's been prepped, you know, extensively, and everything that he says is like, oh, somebody told me. And this is something else. All these news clips keep pinging on, oh, this is how high of a clearance this Grush guy has. Yeah, he has so high of a clearance that he never actually saw any of the material himself. Like, how is that? You know, Lou Elizondo has seen stuff. This Lieutenant Graves has seen these objects, and there's other pilots who have come forward and they said, yes, I've seen these with my own eyes, but not Grush. It's somebody. I just thought of that. What was that? The Killer song. Somebody told me, for some reason, anyways.
Somebody told me. Yeah, I do remember that song. That's funny. So but I mean, maybe he was the highest official, and it was like your boss. Who are you going to send? The guy the mechanic to go talk about this? You're going to send? Hey, I don't want to do it. Tell my manager to do it. My manager's like, I don't want to do it. Tell the director to do it. I don't want to do it. Tell the president to do it. I don't know. Maybe he's like the toppest top guy, and they want to send him to go do it. I don't know. Maybe, but this is go ahead.
It's important to remember that once you get to the top of the military, and so I think you seem to have like a kind of lofty view of the military, Brad. I'm sure there's a lot of people in there that are concerned with the defense of the country, but once you get to the top, it's all political appointments. It's all it's all politics, how well you play the game, and how well you fit into the narrative.
Oof, that doesn't sound fun to me at all. Sounds like somewhere I don't want to work. Yeah, I'd rather be a low man on the totem pole than deal with those politics.
Well,
Mark,
all the things that we've seen.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was going on to the next clip unless you had a comment.
One of the things that I've noticed get playtime over and over is the Tic Tac video, and it seems like this new ball UFO is making its way into the rounds. But I was thinking about that Tic Tac. I remember when that first broke, it was really big news, and it hasn't died away. That had to have been, in my opinion, if like you want the most clear cut of like where is the UFO footage, I would point to that.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially, the only thing I could think of is that they're using it so much because they manufactured it. That could be the only other thing. It's like you really don't know. You're always second guessing yourself with this sort of stuff. But I just think it's funny that even if whatever they're talking about has nothing to do with that incident, they'll play the footage from that incident, like even as an intro. Like, oh, there's new UFO stuff, and while I'm talking about it, here's the Tic Tac footage. So I don't know. I think it has to be significant. Some way, some form.
Our next clip is from Gary Nolan. Now, this is a video I had to do. I had to drop frames on because it wouldn't let me pull it into YouTube without content IDing because they take down the entire video if you do. So it's got still images in it. Just pretend you're watching video. Listen to it. It's fascinating. This is what he says. 3 clips. Gary Nolan talking candidly. Gary Nolan is the Stanford researcher that is talking about UFOs. He's also homosexual. It's fascinating what he says about this because this happened before disclosure. Check this out.
I'm curious, do you believe that extraterrestrial intelligence has visited planet Earth?
I think you can go a step further. It hasn't just visited, it's been here a long time and it's still here. And it has basically, people talk about the wow signal, looking for extraterrestrial intelligence. The wow signal is that people see it on an almost regular basis. That's the communication that's already here.
And that statement seems so incredible that it's tough to believe, right? Like, people hear that, and maybe a lot of people here hear that, and they don't believe it. And so I'm curious, if you had to assign a probability to that statement, that you believe extraterrestrial intelligence has visited this planet, what probability would you assign?
100%. And that's not just my opinion. I mean, look, the National Defense Appropriation Act, passed last year, signed by Biden in December. 30 pages of that is the establishment of an unidentified aerial phenomenon office, the establishment of looking into the harm that's happened to any of a number of the individuals, going back to 1945 and looking at the disinformation and misinformation that has been basically articulated over the decades. 12 U.S. senators have signed on to a document that basically says we want the information. The establishment of an office, ARROW, in the Department of Defense, has 25 people working in it right now. And what's their goal? Collecting the information across all of the U.S. Department of Defense intelligence offices, and collation of that into a uniform format for the very first time, and provision of that then to Congress, the creation of a whistleblowers program specifically that allows people from within, I'm going to say this, who've been working on the reverse engineering programs, reverse engineering of objects, so that they can come in and break their oaths, but it's specifically just to talk to Congress and give that information in classified settings. And that the most recent one that happened was just last weekend, and it created quite a hornet's nest in Washington.
And so let's...
So I pause it right there for a second. It created quite a hornet's nest in Washington. This is before this happened this week, from what I understand. And it was actually brought out by Jeremy Corbell. I didn't have time to find the clip, but Jeremy Corbell says that this was going to Washington. I think I mentioned that on a previous episode, that they were going to be talking about reverse engineering in Congress. And he said it dropped in Congress. And I was like, what does that have to do with anything? And then this broke this week. And so what that tells me is that there's people that know what the narrative is that is going to be pushed. Gary Nolan's one of them. Jeremy Corbell is one of them. They're knit together, and it's happening as I'm going to say they as in humans this time, they are presenting it, and perhaps spiritual too. But hold your comments on that, because we got 2 more clips from Gary Nolan that are just as amazing. And so write down your ideas, because I want to get through this real quick, if you don't mind. Here we go. Next clip.
In your opinion, what do you believe to be the most compelling evidence to support that statement?
Well, I think the most compelling evidence is you just need to look at what your government is doing right now about it. I mean, just go and look at the number of politicians, and this is interesting, on both sides of the aisle, who have come together and signed off on this statement. I mean, I was involved last year with putting together some of the wording of the NDAA, which was passed into law. So what are they basing their opinions on? They're basing their opinions on the dozens of individuals who, in one manner or another, have come forward and talked to them in classified settings. So that's the first thing. Then my personal experiences with the individuals the one person who actually was involved with collecting a lot of that original information, And then my experience with people who, frankly, I know have worked or are working on the reverse engineering programs.
Okay, so let's take one step back. Reverse engineering programs.
Of downed craft. Now, the first question that people will ask is, well, if they're so frigging advanced, why are they crashing? Because what's crashing is not actual living things. I mean, I use this example a lot. If you wanted to study a tribe of cannibals in the middle of the Amazon, are you going to go yourself and show up in the middle of the tribe and not hopefully become dinner on the other side of it? So if you're an advanced intelligence, I don't think we're all that advanced, frankly. You're not going to basically put your life and limb at risk by coming here. So mostly what you're seeing here are either drones or some sort of advanced AI or whatever it is. I mean, look, we're already dealing with an alien intelligence in our own emails, right? Our own Chat GPT, et cetera. We don't even know what it's doing. So imagine if you were a million years ahead of us. How do you have a dialogue with something like that? Or what is it that could possibly do?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to pause it right there just for a second. How convenient that we have ChatGPT and all this AI stuff that comes out just as they want to explain how AI doesn't have anybody in there. Well, what is all this about dead pilots then? Who's telling the truth? Someone doesn't have their story right. I don't know. What do you guys think? We got one more clip about that, by the way, so don't do too long. Give me a couple sentences on what you think about that.
I wrote it down, and I can't believe it never occurred to me that they could bring in an advanced AI as aliens. Like, that had just completely flew over my head. I'm sitting here thinking that human-made AI is the danger. But can you imagine if the aliens come in and they say, you guys are working with that? Oh, it's like you're in the Stone Age. Here's a real AI, and everybody's walking around with that? That just kind of blew my mind, honestly. There's my couple of sentences. Men, gentlemen, can we weigh in on that?
Yeah,
That is nuts.
The phones that we carry around, that seems pretty mind-blowing to me. Like, that we can... I mean, we grew up in the days where phones were attached to walls and you had to wait, 10 minutes for your dial-up to do its ding, and it took forever. Like, now we're carrying all of it. The phone, the computer, the calculator, everything on one device and beyond. Like, now we're video chatting people, which you couldn't even do when we were growing up. To me, this is amazing technology. And now this AI is just like, I use it daily pretty much with the picture generator stuff. And I'm mind blown every time I type something and get a result. I'm mind blown every single time. I'm like, how is a computer making this? Like, when I typed it just doesn't make sense that it can actually make a stylistic photo and a certain look and all that stuff. So I don't know what to think about it, man.
Mm-hmm.
1 Corinthians 3:19 says, for the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God, for it is written, he taketh the wise in their own craftiness. So whatever we think we have, it's nothing compared to what, angels, including the fallen angels, were around at least when humanity was created. Maybe when the earth was founded, Job says they shouted for joy. So they know how all this works better than we do. So we think we're clever, and even the trinkets that they've given to their human servants to go out and make technology with is not the full story of how things work.
This last clip, he talked about how the things crash. Or was that the next clip? I wrote this down to comment on this, but I forget if he mentioned that or if it's the next clip here. Did he say that? Did he mention anything about crashes? I forget.
Yeah.
He said, why do they crash if they're so advanced?
So question, if they're so advanced, why did they crash? His explanation was, well, it's because they're AI, right? Well, what is that? Why? What does that mean they crash? AI crashes. Right. Apparently, the beings haven't perfected their AI yet because they still crash. I mean, they must be in our realm then because we haven't got it right. I think that billions and billions of years advanced than us, they'd figure out how to do AI so it doesn't crash. That doesn't prove anything. Oh well, it wasn't a human or a being operator, so it crashed. What?
Yeah. If anything, you'd think the AI would fly better than a physical being,
Right.
Well, most commercial flights take off and land, unless I'm mistaken, take off and land, a lot of them now, on autopilot. That's not AI. That's just what would be considered a simple computer. And we don't see planes crashing with anywhere near the same frequency as these UAPs seem to crash.
That's right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So Gary's going to get into the religious part of this now. I think he's going to comment on this. He might do it subtly. Let's see what happens. Maybe. There we go.
If you've been around for a long time, and this is something that I do think has been, they've been around for a long time, they are affecting our culture, right? It's actually often thought that many of the religions that we think of as the most important have been part of this process. How do you deal with the religions? Every one of these religions is going to basically look to whatever that is and say, okay, well, what do they believe? Right? We know that the Vatican is involved. I mean, and I'm working with people who are working with the Vatican to basically get them. They've already said, this is very arrogant, they've already said, well, of course they can be Christians. Of course they can have a Jesus. They can be saved. They have a soul. I mean, I think the opportunity is for us to worry about whether they think we're worthy of saving.
Well, Dr. Nolan, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. I appreciate all of you coming on this journey with us. I hope you learned something new. I hope you're willing to question your beliefs just a little bit more. And maybe
Wow. Question your beliefs. This religious thing that all the religions are going to come together and they're going to question. They're going to want to know what the aliens know about God. Can you imagine? Do you think that's going to happen? I think so. I think he was right. They're going to want to.
Yeah. Oh boy. I think most religions, I don't know. I know like Muslims and stuff. They say that this is jinn. They say we understand that ghosts and aliens and all these things are jinn. Yeah, they're fallen angels. New Agers, they believe there's some kind of gods and things like that, and they can channel them. So there's a spiritual aspect. The Christians, at least maybe half of them, I guess, believe they're...
Sin is a uniquely human problem in terms of how God dealt with it. Jesus didn't die for angels. He didn't die for aliens. He died for mankind to reconcile us to God. So just from a theological standpoint, this is the Vatican. This is like the highest level of Catholicism. They're writing the rules and regulations and enforcing them. And they're saying that aliens can be baptized and can be saved. It begs the question, how and why and what kind of a perspective do you even have that you're keeping secret from your congregations? It's just,
well, don't forget,
so
don't forget, Matthew, that Rome takes the place of God on earth. So if they say aliens can be baptized, then aliens can be baptized, right?
Oh yes. Who am I to question the vicar of Christ?
Okay. Wow. Woo. He just saying those words gives me goosebumps. I can't believe that someone would call themselves the vicar.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to Francis. Thank you so much for the super chat. She says thank you so much. This is a journey that we are about a third through right now. We're usually ending the show about now, so hopefully we can keep this rolling. Mikey just texted me. He has to go meet someone real quick, and he'll be back shortly. Or maybe not shortly. I don't know. But he said he'll come back later in the show. Wendy says Gnostic gospel claims that alien serpent and God is God and the one true God. They're setting up the stage for the main scene, guys. Yeah. So how did Satan come to Eve? He didn't come and walk into the garden all in his glory and say, "Hey Eve, you want to be evil?" He said, "Hey, I'm a snake, something that you love, a beautiful one. And look what it's done to me to eat this fruit. Come, don't you want the knowledge?" And that's exactly what's happening.
Don't you want to be like
again.
God?
Yeah, don't you want to be like God? Don't you want, and look what happened. And that's where we are. As soon as she started communicating with this thing, boom, look where we're at. Now, if you start communicating with these things, this is what we're told not to do. And it's going to come in a disguise, just like it did in the garden, and it's going to want to communicate with us because there's rules of engagement. And these things can't just walk up to you and talk to you. They have to be summoned by you, and we're gonna see it as soon as we realize that this is not us, but the world realizes that this is something that can be communicated with. Oh, game over. It's going to be awful. But God is more powerful, and we're going to see some amazing things happen because it's going to be the end. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, CE4 Research. Again, thank you so much for everything you do. He just gave a super chat, and a fantastic ministry he has. If you haven't seen it, go look at it. C4 Research. So he has his own website. He has books, and he has a very, very interesting book on all these different people that have come to him and said that they can overcome this by calling out the name of Jesus and having a relationship with him. Yeah, look, Eric has one right there.
There's the camera.
I love it. Yeah. It has a typical gray. Oh, you got one too. Mine is in the room in there. But
we've all got it in arm's reach. I've got my Joe Jordan and my the good book itself right here.
That's right. It's a good it's a good book. Hit that like button, guys. I know it does help the algorithm. We always get more concurrent viewers every time you hit that like button. So if you haven't yet, please hit it. And hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to this channel. You're going to hear a lot more because this thing isn't going away. It's ramping up to be big time. Let's jump into the next section. Believable witness. This is interesting. This is really interesting. Writer, producer, journalist Bryce Zaber says he checks out. We're going to look at some people that think that he's absolutely checking out. Maybe they're part of the propaganda. Maybe they are something that they know already. And then we're going to look into people that don't think that he checks out. Check this out.
Let's bring in Bryce Zabel. He's a writer, producer, investigative journalist, covers UFOs, actually does a podcast with the guy doing the interview with Grush. Bryce, good to have you on the show. Thank you.
I think Grush is the real deal, and I look forward to people putting as much attention on checking him out as they can because I think he checks out.
Wasn't fired. Doesn't have beef that we know about. The government hasn't come forward and said he was fired or has beef. And in fact, he is telling us the truth as far as we know about going to DOD for pre-publication clearance. And he was told not to talk about certain things. Is that your understanding as well?
Well, that's what it's called the DOPSA document, and it basically allows him to talk about certain things. Now, it's a dangerous game for a person like Dave Grush because that puts a line there, and he has to, as he's answering questions for Ross or yourself in the future, he has to wonder whether he's going over that line or not. So he's got, he's obviously being watched by the government to make sure that he stays on the right side of what they're allowing him to talk about. But I think it is pretty wild that the government has said, go ahead, Dave, tell your story. And that's exactly what he's doing. And it's interesting. I'm not sure people even understand this. In addition to all the credentials this guy has, he actually worked on the presidential daily briefing. He was one of the guys trusted to literally walk that briefing over to the White House. This is not some guy who, worked in the government 30 years ago who's coming forward with a YouTube video. This is a guy who was deeply involved in the intelligence community of the U.S. government up until April of this year. And he's telling a story that, as you've pointed out, is pretty radical. And yet there's a lot of reason to believe that it's true.
I want to give a shout out to Ragin. Thank you so much for your super chat. Man, he says, hello. Oh, hello, my fellow alien, quote unquote, exposures. P.S. They're demons. He's got the right message there. Thank you so much for your super chat. That was writer, producer, journalist Bryce Zabler and he says he checks out. Now, they do a podcast. So I went in and checked them out to see what their podcast was they were doing. And this is what that says before you have any comments. Check this out.
I have to say, my impressions of Dave Grush are not formed just by talking to Dave Grush. Both Leslie and Ralph and I have done very methodical checking into his background. We've assessed his credibility, and more importantly, we've verified with many independent sources that he is who he says he is. He's basically he's one of the guys who quite literally was involved in putting together the presidential daily briefing for the President of the United States. He was cleared so highly with his top secret SCI compartmented clearance that he was given access to over 2,000 special access programs. And before any of you leap to conclusions and assume that he's another Edward Snowden or another person who's breaking the law to bring this information to the public, the extraordinary thing about Dave Grush's revelations are that he is making them under the authorization of the Defense Office Pre-Publication Security Review. He has been approved by the US Department of Defense to do the interview he's done with me and with Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal. I like to think, I'd hope, that this indicates a pleasant level of openness by the US Defense Department. But as Dave candidly has told me, he believes it's more a necessity for the US Defense Department. He's determined he wants to tell his story, and I think they see the DOPSA review as a way of trying to control his narrative. But it's hugely significant because essentially he has put what he wants to talk about to the US Defense Department, and he has received approval from the US Defense Department to talk about what he reveals to both Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal and myself. I think that's quite huge, and it's a very pleasant degree of openness from a department that, frankly, I think we've had good cause to be very critical of in the past. That's one of the reasons why I do think we're about to step into the unknown. Dave Grush isn't that. He's not somebody who's worked in the program. But what he did do is he worked for the UAP task force. He was perhaps the lead investigator for the body that the Pentagon set up to investigate the phenomenon at the request of the Congress. And it was he who was authorized with all of his compartmented security clearances to go and find the codename programs that do exist, that contain what he alleges involve, as we've read today in the debrief, a crash retrieval program, recovered non-human technology that is secretly held by the United States. I've, like you, in the last few weeks, Bryce, ever since I've first spoken to Dave, had trouble processing what he's been telling us. I've asked myself constantly, could he be some kind of disinformation stooge that's being put up by the Defense Department to completely and egregiously mislead the UAP research community? So many people have vouched for him from the inside. I've never been fully candid, even with you, my friend, about the people that I've been talking to. But you might remember I told you once that in my book as well, I talked about a guy called Nat Kobitz.
Yep.
And Nat was one of the chief geeks for the US Navy. And he was dying, and he gave me leads. And I've never spoken about this before, but he gave me leads that led me to people working in what they purported was a secret program involving the retrieval and attempted reverse engineering of non-human technology. And I've been speaking to those people for some time, and it was they who told me about Dave Grush, and it was they who vouched about Dave Grush to me. So unless there's been an elaborate disinformation program going back 2, maybe even 3 years, I think this guy's for real. He's one of the highest intelligence officers ever to come forward. In fact, I think he is the highest intelligence officer ever to come forward on the issue of UAPs. And one of the reasons why I think we should give him huge credibility is because I've been able to confirm, and so have Leslie and Ralph, that Dave's allegations made in a secret hearing to the Inspector General of the intelligence community have been verified to be both urgent and credible. And for that reason, his allegations were referred urgently to the oversight committees of the Congress.
Boy, I mean, wow.
He's laying it on thick. Again, so Dave Grush is not the only guy in the U.S. military with a TS/SCI clearance. They keep going on about this. People have a fascination with this stuff. It's a lot of people have it. You're read into programs. Can we just get past it? And again, he didn't see any of the stuff himself. So he's this highly cleared guy briefing the president, but he didn't see any classified material. And also, if he's doing this with the authorization of the Department of Defense, how is he a whistleblower? Whistleblowers are people who break ranks and go outside of their chain of command. If you're reporting to the Inspector General, and I know this because I've done it, like you've tried to resolve an issue through your chain of command, and the problem is your chain of command. So you have to go to a higher entity. That's when you go to an Inspector General or to Congress or something like that. So if he's doing this and the DOD is saying, yeah, you can do this, you're not a whistleblower.
So
you're a mouthpiece for the DOD.
So is the Inspector General, because I don't understand it. You guys have been in the military. I don't know what Inspector General is. So is it like the HR? You're going to HR if you're...
The way I kind of think of it, and I've never been a police officer, but I kind of think of it as like the internal affairs of like whatever agency. So every major military branch has one. There's a Navy IG, there's an Air Force IG, there's an Army IG, there's one for the entire DOD. I'm sure the post office has one, or the CIA. It's they inspect allegations of wrongdoing, of criminal activity, fraud, waste, and abuse, all that kind of stuff. You refer to the IG, and they investigate it because they are outside of the chain of command of whatever that agency is.
Fascinating. Mikey, I'm glad you're back for this next clip. Unless, Matthew, you have a comment on that. I want to go into this Matt Walsh clip because it's going to be really fascinating.
Oh, yeah, that is going to be good. Yeah, I guess the only thing I could think of is that he was cleared to talk with all media platforms, it seems. Because he said he was given permission to give the interview to like 3 different people. And none of those people are anchors on mainstream media. I just think it's interesting that it's kind of being disseminated through these alternative media branches because mainstream media is so discredited. Ties back around to why Tucker Carlson is now doing Tucker on Twitter. It's because nobody trusts. If he was going through Fox, no one would even, there would be some questioning. But now it seems like mainstream or alternative media is the place to be. In terms of getting the scoop.
Fascinating. Very good, guys. Thank you for your comments. This is again, Strange Normal. Thank you for joining us, everybody. It looks like we have over 100 in chat. Thank you, live chat stream. You guys are fantastic. Look at you group tonight. You're gonna be here till midnight, I hope, because that's what it looks like. We're about halfway through the show. Check this out. Matt Walsh he's of the Daily Wire. Daily Wire is a conservative broadcast. It's become very popular. They recently, Matt Walsh himself has produced a movie called What is a Woman? You've probably heard this term quite a bit if you're in this realm. And so he has some interesting ideas when it comes to UFOs. Check this out.
We're not alone in the universe, but I feel alone sometimes as a UFO enthusiast, especially working here. So I can tell you, I gathered my entire family. In fact, I got my kids. My kids had gone to bed, and I had them come out of their rooms because someone sent me this. I didn't know the guy did an interview on News Nation, and so my kids came out of their rooms after they'd already gone to bed. So I got my wife to gather around, and I said, come on, kids, come on, family. It's a family moment. We're going to watch this interview. You're going to remember this moment for the rest of your life. And we watched the interview, and they were bored by it. Like, they didn't even care. My wife started wandering away in the middle of it. I said, where are you going? It's only 10 minutes. Can you spare 10 minutes to learn about aliens? But the real objection people have, I think, is that they rule it out as a possibility because they don't want to think about the implications if it's true. I think that's actually what's going on. And we'll get to that in a second. But so there's the real objection, which is that there are people, especially some conservatives, who think that, I can't believe this. I just can't. Not that it's unbelievable, but I can't allow myself to believe it because I think it has implications that are scary to me. But that's not usually what's said. Instead, it's something, they cite other reasons. And one of them is that this is a distraction by the government. It's trying to distract us. That's all this is. But that's nonsense, first of all, because these stories don't get a lot of attention, right? They get some attention, but they're not. It's not something that dominates the news cycle for days on end. Many people don't care that much. So they should care, I think, but they don't. So the distraction theory is totally baseless. It makes no sense. It's not a distraction. People don't focus on it that much. Not to mention the whole idea that the government would need to invent these kinds of stories to distract us. Like, we're distracted all the time anyway by a million different things. So they need to come up with some totally outlandish story about aliens that they've recovered to distract us when we're already, I mean, most people, they spend 10 hours a day just like scrolling randomly through TikTok and watching Netflix. You think that the American public needs to be distracted by this? It's like you're flattering us, okay? As if we're all, laser focused on the important issues. And so they have to come up with some crazy distraction mechanism. That's not the case. I wish it was, but it's not. This is just the latest whistleblower, somebody very high up on the chain who, as far as I can tell, stands to gain nothing from this, who had access to very classified information, verified by other officials, denied officially by the Pentagon. But it's the latest in a chain of events that includes all kinds of sightings, thousands of them, accompanied by photographic and video evidence, radar. It's been going back, there was many famous sightings going back years and years and years, going back decades. There was the famous sighting that I think they covered in Unsolved Mysteries, the latest Unsolved Mysteries series on Netflix in Michigan, where hundreds of people saw these things simultaneously and were calling in. We have the 911 reports of them calling in, reporting what sound very much like flying saucers. And it was caught on radar by the National Weather Service at the same time. So many things like that. So you've got eyewitnesses, you've got classified information, you've got physical evidence, you do have videos, we have radar. So there's actually a lot of evidence here, which makes, so if it's still not enough for you to even entertain the possibility, then I have to ask you, what do you need? If this isn't enough to even make you pause to think about it, then what evidence do you need? What that tells me is that there is no evidence that you could ever be presented that would convince you. I think that is the case for some people. Like, you could literally see them land right in front of you and you would still say, oh, it's AI, it's mind control. It's like, you would go to any other explanation but that. And I think that's because there's a large portion, especially of conservatives, who think, because conservatives tend to be more religious, and who think that they can't believe this because it would call their faith into question. But that's not true. Let me relieve you of that burden. There's nothing about the potential existence of life elsewhere in the universe that would call your faith into question. It just, we know the universe is massive and there's lots of things going on in the universe we don't know about. And we probably can't even understand because God has created a universe that is much bigger and more complicated and more amazing than maybe you give it credit for. I don't see how that calls anything. Now, it raises questions that we can't answer all. It raises all kinds of questions, religious questions, scientific questions that we can't answer because some of this stuff is above our pay grade. But who says we have to understand every last thing? We have to be able to understand every last thing about the universe. And as far as the Bible goes, the Bible isn't concerned with talking about what's happening elsewhere in the universe. Doesn't acknowledge other planets at all, really. Doesn't mean it denies they exist. It's just, it's focused on what's happening here. So I don't think that that's a concern you need to have, but I do think that that is really the fundamental reason why many people refuse to even look at the evidence, because they think that they are committed to not believing it, and I think that that's just not true. You can be open-minded, look at the evidence, and at least acknowledge that, again, the universe is a bigger and more complicated place than any of us could possibly understand. And there are, putting aliens aside, there are things happening out there in the vast cosmos that we can't possibly wrap our minds around.
Well, okay, so not getting into cosmetology right now, because I forgot that he talked about that.
Cosmology?
Well, I was thinking about my hair,
Yeah.
Mikey and I specifically don't agree with our cosmetology. So
that's right.
Mikey's more of a nail guy.
Mikey's a fundamentalist, getting down to the root of things, right?
Okay. So
I would love to have a conversation with Matt Walsh too, because I love that dude. And from what I'm hearing, he's saying, look, God created this vast universe and there could be life out there. But what he's saying is more evolution mindset, because if God created everything, and we were told that this got brought up earlier about Christ came to earth to die for sin. He didn't go to Mars or billions of light years away. He came here. And so if there's life on another world that's traveling here and mutilating cows and probing people's anuses, then that's a sinful nature. That's something that needs to that's saying that God created this vast universe and maybe there's another world that's just in that right zone that life could have formed there. Otherwise, he's saying that God created these sinful beings that fly around here and do wicked things.
I want to.
The Dan Bongino clip we're going to play later is perfect rebuttal for his distraction thing. So just keep it a teaser for those watching.
Yeah. And I'm going to play that clip one more time. Hold your thought, Matthew. Wow, stutter. Let me see. I'm going to play that clip one more time. This is the reason, Matt, if you're watching this, sometimes Content ID catches things and they want to show and see what other people are talking about. We're talking about it, and this is why we're talking about it. Check out this clip, Matt. This is important. You need to look into this guy.
And the priest told us, could I have a little bit more of your time? I want to do something very fascinating. He says the grain plain, the master's grain plain, for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the forces of good and evil. So we continued, after we expressed ourselves that we're deeply interested to know more about the activities of the spirits. And he said it's going to be done in a unique manner. This grain plain is going to take people are going to eat the stuff. Because he says spirits, demon spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet unless something seriously proper is done
to avoid it. That was Roger Marneau. He was a well-known occultist that turned Christian from Montreal, Canada. You need to look into him.
Do you know what year that was filmed?
It was in the
80s.
It must have been the 80s. Yeah, I got to look.
That interview was from the 80s.
And he's talking about 40 years prior to that. I mean, there are people who knew this was coming. I wish Roger was alive today, man. He'd be on Strange Normal.
Oh, he would. Yeah, we actually have some of his family members that watch, and I need to have some of them on. That would be cool. But it's remarkable, and the Bible says it. You can extrapolate it right from the Bible. Watch the documentaries. Both of us, Mikey and I, made a documentary on it. So anyway,
I hope those get some traffic right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Matthew, I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
Oh, it's okay. Oh, Bradley, it's okay. Don't worry about it. The reason why Matt Walsh, Mikey, I think you picked up on it, is kind of going down this evolutionary mindset is because Matt Walsh is a Catholic, and the Catholic Church has embraced evolution. They say that evolution does not contradict the biblical narrative and that it's perfectly fine to accept evolution. So when you have this belief, that like life is evolving all over the place, and he's saying that, oh, well, it's okay because there could be something else in this great big universe. Whatever. Look at the Bible and tell me where it says that beings from another planet, not angels, not other humans, just like beings in general, are coming to Earth and having an impact on us. I think that would have been a massive prophecy to have in the Bible, but you don't see anything like that. You see deceptions that are being detailed. You see evil spirits working through their human agents to get things done. That is what the Bible talks about. That is the biblical story. So you have to defer to the Bible and say, okay, are there actually these other beings that are going to be coming and visiting us and are, cool with God, or maybe in need of a little redemption? They need a little baptism and the gospel shared to them? No, the Bible doesn't say anything about that. So you have to look at it through a biblical frame. And once you do, it's totally clear. You're right. Like, these beings are obviously drenched in sin. And
So
they're
so
fallen
wait.
angels.
So wait. Matt Walsh is Catholic. Are you sure? Michael Knowles
Yeah.
is Catholic. He's of the Daily Wire too. Jordan Peterson of the Daily Wire is also Catholic. Do they have a domination on Daily Wire? Is the whole Daily Wire Catholic except for Ben Shapiro?
Walsh.
That's interesting
Walsh
to
is
hear
a
about.
practicing Catholic. Yeah, I got it right here.
It's interesting to hear about Jordan Peterson because the last I knew, he wasn't really religious in all of his like psychological talks, and he does put out some valuable information. I mean, he is a pretty intelligent guy, but I've never heard him address things from a Christian perspective. It seems like he was working his way toward that, but if he's Catholic, then that's big news, I think.
Oh man, he made Joe Rogan uncomfortable. He was like, "Oh, the ultimate truth," and there's like this moment of pause, and it's on Joe Rogan. He goes, "I'm talking about the Bible." Peterson's like believes the Bible is absolutely true. Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah,
because he deconstructs it from an evolutionary psychology perspective, like in his courses and lectures, which are interesting in their own right. But I mean, what's that?
Were those older? Because I thought the whole thing was like his testimony that he was like a atheist and now he's Christian.
I've never heard that. That's fascinating. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah. Peterson seems to be kind of more like a mystic to me, like a kind of a Christian mystic. He reminds me of like Carl Jung. You know, that's who Jordan Peterson reminds me of. I could be totally wrong. I mean, I haven't looked at his stuff in like a couple of years now. I mean, pray for the guy. And that goes for everyone. Matt Walsh, pray for him. Everybody, pray for these people. Yeah. As soon as you see this, there's a reason why there's a calling on us. Like even Joe Rogan. I know a lot of people kind of like gravitate towards Joe Rogan. I guess he's just a likable guy. He kind of has a charismatic spirit, maybe. Maybe behind him, maybe puppeting him. I don't know. Not to pick on Joe too badly, but pray for these people. I mean, that's just, you can pray
and pray for us too. We're not putting this out here as like, you know, we have 100% the answers of play by play how the Great Deception is going to go. We're just alerting you to what's going on and saying, hey, there is a great deception. There are big things happening in the spiritual realm coming up. Be aware, but we all need to pray for discernment to not be deceived.
Absolutely.
So prayers appreciated.
100%. And speaking of a discernment, I'm 100% sure Nick Pope does not have the correct Christian view. We're gonna jump into religion here real quick, and we're gonna look and see what some of these things are saying about religion, because this is an important topic. Check this out.
Now, the Department of Defense has released this statement to News Nation in response to the claims of UFO evidence. To date, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently. AARO is committed to following the data and its investigation wherever it leads. Here now, Nick Pope, who investigated UFOs for the UK's Ministry of Defense. Wonderful to have you, Nick. So Air Force veteran David Grush says, we do have possession of alien aircraft. Do his claims seem legitimate to you?
Yes, I think they do, and that's why Congress is actively investigating them. I understand that the intelligence committees in both the Senate and the House have the detailed information, and they're now trying to verify it, and rightly so, because if this is verified, this is the biggest story of all time. No story could be bigger and more impactful. Every aspect of our lives would be changed forever, and Congress is on the case and pushing for that verification.
So if we do have proof of extraterrestrial life, why keep it from the public?
Well, that is a really fascinating question. I think there are a couple of possibilities. One is that the technology involved could be weaponized in some way, and the United States may be extremely concerned about this getting into the hands of an adversary. But if that's the case, you would think that the technical details could be redacted, and they could at least say, yeah, we're not alone. So maybe it's something else, and people have speculated. Maybe there's some truth too terrible to be told about this, which is causing the intelligence community to hold this information back, even from NASA, even from the Pentagon's Arrow office, who can't apparently get access. I don't know. Is it something to do with people's religious beliefs, with all the global tensions and instabilities? Is it something else? We don't know, but we need to find out.
So, is it something to do with people's religious beliefs? Is it something else? That's the only one he mentioned. That was a direct, if I've never seen one before, is a direct take at religion. And we know that it is playing a big role in the Pentagon. A lot of the stuff that hasn't merged into the mainstream is because a lot of officials think this is absolutely a demonic manifestation, and they don't want it to go out because they're worried that people will start saying it's something they need to look into further. They don't want to look into it further. Christianity doesn't want to look into it further. They know what it is. And so this guy saying, hey, is it that we need this stuff because religious people are not allowing us to get it? That's what I heard. What do you guys think?
You guys got something?
I just don't want to cut anybody off. I feel like every time I'm cutting somebody off.
That's never a problem
like,
for you, Matthew.
So, yeah, I agree. I think that he is kind of taking a jab at the religious folks. We've heard it, though, through different testimonies. Lou Elizondo talks about how he was with a higher up, and he said, have you read your Bible lately? It's that famous at this point, within the UFO community, little exchange. Sir, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, well, they're demons there, Lou, that old thing. So we have that, and we know that even Tom DeLonge is quoted as saying that aliens are closer to demons, biblical demons, than people realize. So I do think that at a certain point, especially when you're having communication with these beings, because I think that communication happens. I mean, if you look at some of the tests that the military has done before, they've spiked their own guys with LSD and watched them trip out and taken notes on it. If they've done that, do you not think they've downloaded the CE5 app from Dr. Greer and they've all sat in a room and done it and have taken notes on what has happened? I mean, you have this weird thing. I remember back before I was a Christian, and they were talking about the psychedelic experiments, and they had something called a shared hallucination, where everyone in the room was describing the same entity and hearing the same words out of that entity. And I remember, not a Christian, just being like, wow, I think that was a real entity. There's a real spiritual realm then, and these entities could be there. And now as a Christian, I still believe that. I just have the correct frame of mind to see them as demonic entities. So, yeah, I think that they know a lot more about the spiritual aspect of this than they're letting on.
100%. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just the military is steeped, just real quick, the military is steeped in occultism. And actually, we still need to do our show about occult mission patches. I'm putting a link in the chat right now, because maybe you guys can look through it and send us your favorite ones for the show, because once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it is literally everywhere. Every government agency, almost every military unit or branch. So check it out.
My dad was military intelligence for 8.5 years, and he said during that time in the 80s and 90s that he knew that the military was testing telekinesis, pyrokinesis, all these different things that were doing things with your mind and stuff. They're studying all that stuff because, hey, it's hey, if it works, we can use it on the enemy or whatever, or we can use it to get information from the enemy or to win over the enemy or whatever.
Wow, you don't know who you're playing with. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's
have you sorry, just on the military topic, have you guys heard about Michael Aquino? He was an officer in the military, and he was an outright Satanist. If you called his number and you'd get his voicemail, it would be he's oh yes, you've reached this branch of the Satanic Temple or whatever. He's put out a book. I mean, I see it right here on Amazon, The Satanic Bible, 50th Anniversary Revision by Michael Aquino, with a foreword by none other than Satan himself.
Oh my
So
goodness.
there you go. These are the people who are in the military. I mean, it makes sense, though, that there would be Satanists in the military. Your job is to eliminate human life. At its core, that's
Yeah.
what it is. And to justify it too, and to say that this is okay for us to do, which often entails deceit. So I think, there's plenty of Satanists in the military.
Absolute. Let's jump into Skeptics. I think this is where Dan Bongino comes in. He's a fourth on the list here to look at. We got a lot of videos to get through still. But the thing I want to look at is Skeptics. What do they think? We've looked at the people that say, yeah, this guy's legit. Now let's look at why they think he's not legit. And because I think that'd be a good balance to see what's going on. Hey, if you're liking this, hit that like button. Appreciate it. It really does help. We got 96 concurrent viewers in here. We want to get up to 100 again. And that's what that like button does. I've seen it happen. I watched the graph. It's amazing. Hit that like button if you're in here and you haven't yet. Thank you so much. Watch this next clip. This is interesting.
Writer and debunker of conspiracy theories, Mick West.
Well, I think that naturally means that we have to be very skeptical about what he says. He hasn't actually seen any of these craft. He hasn't actually seen any of these bodies. I don't think he's even seen any photos of these craft or these bodies. So we need to take what he says. It's very interesting. It would be wonderful if it was true. I would love to find evidence of alien visitors. But ufology has been a subject that has been filled with promises. We're always being promised that disclosure is just around the corner. The government is going to tell us what they know. And this just seems like another one of those promises. And until we actually get the goods, until someone brings the receipts, I think we really need to be skeptical.
And we're going to watch one more before we get into that one. Two more, actually. We're going to look at some LA news anchors that are just not buying it. Watch this.
Writer and debunker of conspiracy theories, Mick West.
Now, we have not obviously seen specific evidence here, but Grush, the whistleblower, is alleging that the government has waged what he calls a sophisticated disinformation campaign. Brooke and Bob.
You're saying that we have not seen specific information, and here's the thing, neither has he, right? So we're just like, this whole story comes from this one whistleblower, and he personally hasn't seen the aliens or the UFOs or anything.
He's seen the reports, and he was certainly in a position to have seen those reports. You know, the problem these stories always run into is that the conspiracy would have to be massive, and it would have to involve a lot of people that have kept quiet for a long time, which is not to say it can't be true, but nevertheless, I think a lot of folks are looking at this with some skepticism as well.
Yeah, because it's not just one UFO, it's like he's talking about multiple ones, so it's not just one incident. So it's not just one conspiracy theory; it's several conspiracy theories. I mean, in my opinion, that's something. I'm sure there's people out there.
And the bodies of aliens, even. I mean, there's some significant claims here.
Right.
Skepticism is this.
And then the motive for motive for just covering up this whole time. Anyway, all right, Doug, we can go on. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, guys.
They're not buying it. And one more, we're going to look at this. This is going to draw a ton of comments. So if you have a comment, write it down because we're going straight into body language. So let's look at Dr. G. He has a YouTube channel, and he does body language analysis. This was interesting. Check this out. What do you think about this?
Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing the body language of the UFO whistleblower, David Grush.
On secrets he says no one has ever shared publicly before.
You are one of the most trusted former intelligence officials in the U.S. defense and intelligence establishment.
Yes, I was. So we're seeing a slight smile. That could be a nervous smile, it could be socially appropriate behavior, or it could be that he is preparing to deceive. We're going to have to see which one it is.
You were trusted with the most intimate secrets.
Yes. So right now he's nodding his head along with yes, as he's acknowledging that he's trusted with secrets. He's U.S. intelligence, so of course he's been trusted with secrets. I'd be shocked if he wasn't trusted with secrets. So that is true. And I want you to keep in mind that he does nod his head when he's saying yes, and sometimes he shakes his head when saying no. This can be very important. It sounds like a small point, but it's something that's going to be very consequential as we continue to watch this interview. Now, this is where it starts to be questionable as to whether or not his head shakes are consistent with what he's saying. So watch this again.
Human origin, technical
Now, right now his head's sort of bobbing, so you can't really say it's nodding or shaking at this point.
vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will.
All right, so he was shaking his head, call it spacecraft if you will. Now, maybe he was doing that for emphasis, or maybe he was suggesting no as he's talking about spacecraft. Let's keep watching.
Based on their oral testimony,
and they provided me documents and other proof that there was, in fact, a program that the UAP task.
So after he said that they provided me documents and hard proof, he did a hard swallow. Oftentimes we associate that with very significant amounts of stress. Does that necessarily mean he's lying? No, but we do oftentimes see it with deceitful behavior because people feel anxious after saying that. Maybe he feels anxious for another reason. But I can say pretty conclusively that that hard swallow after saying that would be associated with stress.
You are saying intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points.
All right, now, this was from behind, but watch this. He says, absolutely the data points. Just watch his head during that.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points.
Absolutely the data points. So that was a pretty clear head shake as he said that.
Empirically, that we're not alone, yeah.
The lip pursing again. Once again, that goes back to anxiety and stress. Does that mean he's lying? No, not necessarily. We oftentimes look for that in lying and deceit because people are stressed when they lie or when they're being deceptive. It could also be that it's stressful talking about or revealing secrets.
Do we have species of
Well, naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not,
So he's closing his eyes as he's saying this. I talk a lot about people closing their eyes when they're talking. We oftentimes do that when we're thinking about something that we don't like. Now, does that mean that he's lying? Not necessarily. Sometimes it can be used as a way to deceive. It could just mean that he's thinking about something he doesn't want to think about or something he doesn't like. But it's a behavior worth noting.
And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
And as we saw, there was a pretty vigorous head shake as he said, it's true. And the corners of his mouth are tight again, which once again suggests stress or anxiety.
So I've got to be blunt about this. You're not making this up. This is not a lie.
No, absolutely not.
So now you're seeing him vigorously shake his head no. So you might be asking yourself, well, if he's answering this and showing this body language here, doesn't that contradict what you were saying a second ago? Well, not necessarily. Because something that we see, and we see this on trials all the time, because normally I'm analyzing trials, is that when people are asked a question directly and they want to have a very strong point about it, they can have body language consistent even if it's not the truth. So they can say no and shake their head very vigorously. It's that it occasionally spills out. Occasionally they don't hide it well.
Everybody watching this right now is looking at your face. They're going, is this guy for real?
I am for real. And
Once again, there were the eyes closed. I am for real. Now, that could just mean that he's stressed talking about this. It could also be a sign of deception. It'll have to be up to you to decide what you think it is. So what conclusions can we come to after watching this interview? Well, he definitely had a lot of stress. He definitely showed a lot of concern. There were times where it suggested a lack of confidence. Does that mean he's being deceptive or lying? Not necessarily, but what it does mean is that it brings forth a lot of stress and anxiety, something that we oftentimes see when people lie. That's not the only reason people show that. What I find harder to get past is him shaking his head no when saying things in the affirmative. So do I believe that he's privy to information that suggests that we have non-human pilots that we've found? I'm not convinced yet. I definitely want to see more, but I'm open to seeing and hearing more about this as we continue. I'm sure this isn't the last we've heard of this.
So this ties into the next clip, which is Dan Bongino, but I want to get you guys' thoughts on this so that before we go into that, because this next clip is probably going to draw a lot of attention.
I think it's extremely self-conscious about my body language.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I would hate to have that guy like watching this show.
No, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
It's kind of miraculous, I think. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I was just body language.
Yeah, okay, shut up, Matthew. No, it's marvelous how God created things, and that even though we're fallen and things like that, that you can't pull off 100% deception. There's always going to be clues that, like, if you're not telling the truth, which is what we're supposed to default to, what God wanted us is just, they're not supposed to be lies. There's going to be a tell. There's always a tell. And you see in these, like, you're right. I mean, I don't know what they would think of this broadcast or, you know, my day-to-day conversations, but it's like, it makes you self-conscious because it's like, yeah, the truth is in every interaction that we have, every one of these interviews, and little things like this. Once you see have somebody mention it, like, oh, so I knew about the thing before where if you're shaking your head but you're saying something affirmative, or the converse, that's a big, like, you know, that's something that's easy to spot, and so you can't unsee it.
I just know the smiling while lying because that is a cool name. They call it the Duper's Delight. Sounds like a Ben and Jerry ice cream flavor.
Boy, I smile way too much. I'm going to be lying all the time if this guy watches me. Oh, okay. All right. So you ready? Are you ready, Eric? This is it. This is the one. Dan Bongino, former federal agent, isn't buying it. Check this out.
Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a
What?
licensed clinical psychologist and
About 6 years ago, I got a call from an FBI informant who told me that they were using the FISA court system to spy on Donald Trump. And I said, that's the craziest I've ever heard. I'm a federal agent. There's no way that happened. There are way too many guardrails. No freaking way. Ain't doing that again. I just said to you, Happy Ryan, I'm skeptical of the story. I'm very skeptical of the timing of the story. Do you notice every time we get in trouble, like the Chinese spy balloon, oh, look, an alien story pops up. Joe Biden's in trouble. Aliens, you ever notice that? Now, I'm not saying it's 100% correlation, but I want you to pay attention to the timing of the stories about aliens and the bad news for Joe Biden. There's almost 100% correlation. So, Ryan, I'm with you. But either way, the story's interesting. Because if the story's fake, and this is out there to distract you from Joe Biden, it's a really, really good fake and speaks to the conspiracy to shut the story up, right? Which is a story in and of itself. But if it's not fake, it's only the biggest story of our time. That's why. Now, I'm going to let you watch this interview. My friends who are, I'm telling you, human lie detectors. They've gone through multiple interrogation schools. They are better than a polygraph, these guys. I asked them to watch this thing. And just like Meatloaf, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. 2 out of 3 of them were like, this guy's definitely not telling the truth. Here's what makes me suspicious of the story. For those in the chat are having this question why we're talking about it, right? The timing, again. You don't find it a little strange every time something bad breaks in the Biden administration, Chinese spy balloons, Biden falls on his face, Biden bribery allegations come around, someone pops up out of nowhere and is like, oh my gosh, I saw a UFO. You know, nobody else thinks that's weird. And did you notice in the thing too, he wouldn't show us the document? He's seen it, but he doesn't have it. Kind of strange, right? Nobody's seen the document. Where are the pictures? Here's another reason. Folks, I had a TS, top secret, sensitive compartmented information, TS SCI clearance, one of the highest levels of clearance in the government. Everybody leaks in the government. I wish it weren't true, but it is. I went on multiple trips where they were like, sign an NDA, you can't say anything about this trip. I got but 2 minutes into the car and someone called me, hey, I heard you going to South Kakalakadaki or something. How'd you know? I just signed an NDA. People leak. If there were pictures of this stuff, this is the only guy who's seen it. I'm not telling you it ain't real. I'm just telling you be skeptical. Copy? All right, moving on. I got a lot to...
So that's interesting because Nick Pope was like, oh, no, I've been in the military and people don't leak. And then this guy's like, oh, yeah, people leak all the time. I don't know.
John Dorsett in the chat was asking, what's Joe Biden in trouble for? And this is where I think it's good to take a step back and try to view the whole picture. And really discussing politics does have a place in this, not from the perspective of left versus right or whatever, because we know Satan controls all sides. But the political sphere, well, it is under Satan's control, the same as the scientific sphere and the academic sphere, and he's moving all of these pieces. And so right now there's an allegation that there's an FBI document that a congressional committee just looked at it, I think today, that Joe Biden took bribes, a $5 billion bribe in exchange for policy favors when he was vice president. This has ties to the Ukraine. Well, what's going on in the Ukraine right now? So, and this has been going on. These allegations have been ever since the 2020 election, and it's just been building and building, and now it seems to be reaching ahead. So paying attention to these political pieces that are moving and then connecting them again to the topic of this channel, it does dovetail nicely. And so, and another thing is, Satan can use a piece for more than one objective, right? Yes, he wants to promote UFOs to, get people to reject Jesus Christ and to get people on the New Age or however he's going to use it. But he can also use it as a distraction from other political moves that he's moving other pieces. So it's all a tangled web of deceit.
Fascinating.
Very true.
Fascinating. John D'Souza, he's the X-Files man, and he's our last guy in the Skeptics category before we move on to another category. This is what he says, and this I thought was a very pertinent clip. This is from one of my favorite podcasts, Redacted. Here we go.
Well, John D'Souza is a retired FBI special agent who served for 25 years on the counterterrorism and paranormal cases. He had a top secret clearance during that time, during his time at the FBI. In fact, D'Souza literally collected the real-life X-Files that were used in the show, The X-Files. He has a lot to say about this UFO whistleblower.
My first thoughts were what I really know personally, and it's about many whistleblower complaints from FBI people. Going back many years, I've had involvement with these people, going back all the way to counterterrorism whistleblower named Sybil Edmonds, another one named Robin Gritz, and including the modern whistleblowers that we have today, FBI agents Garrett O'Boyle, Marcus Allen, Steve Friend, all of whom were stripped of security clearance and fired from the FBI. So what my first thoughts were extreme confusion, because first of all, what is the basis for his whistleblowing? For instance, all of the FBI whistleblowers, the basis for their complaints is the weaponization of the FBI against civilians, which is highly illegal, improper, unethical. I mean, that is the basis for a whistleblower complaint. And all of these people have suffered enormous punishment and retaliation, and they've been fired, they've been persecuted, they've suffered extraordinary things. I'm not even clear from David Grush's interviews what was the retaliation. Is he even working anymore for the government? I can't tell because he doesn't really address this, and that goes to another point. Real whistleblowers have something called righteous rage. They have righteous rage because they've been persecuted, they've been wronged tremendously, and I don't see that with David.
So you don't buy it. You don't buy it in his video responses. Is it something about his interview that it was standing out to you? And because he filed this complaint saying there's government suppression here, there's government suppression of these vehicles, and he's coming forward to be the person that's going to tell us all about this.
Right. But that's not an illegality. That's not an actual legitimate basis for a whistleblower complaint. The government is always allowed to not share information with the public. That's otherwise the entire national security structure couldn't function. That's one thing that I see as extremely problematic. I believe it looks like it's part of a much larger psychological operation. And so what happens in these things is that they get a lot of people to work for the psychological operation unknowingly. They actually believe what they're doing is right, is correct, and that it needs to be done. They have many people who are working for this psychological operation, including congressmen and senators, U.S. senators, who are trying to get in on this because it's just extraordinary. So one thing I would ask for the people who are pushing David Grush forward is that they need to have him answer some real questions from a real journalist like maybe Whitney Webb, to actually come forward in order to give this any legitimacy, because I see all the comments everywhere I go. They just don't believe this. People, the regular people, is that in this entire psyop, there's a CIA phrase that they all use. And it's a CIA phrase because it's a psychological operation phrase that implies alien visitors, but doesn't directly say it. But it triggers all the neurons in our minds that associate with alien vehicles. And it's this: they are, and this whistleblower did it too. He was fed the line to say that says, quote, "Yes, this means that we are definitely not alone in the universe." And and they look up meaningfully at space, supposedly, when they say it. And they've all done this. They've all done this. And it's unbelievable because it's the exact same wording.
So what is at the heart of this psychological operation? For me, let me just give you my cynical view, which is, yes, of course we have otherworldly vehicles. We've been reverse engineering them for decades. We have this. We know this. It's absolutely 100% the case, right? We know this. Now, they're trying to create a boogeyman because we need another enemy. The deep state wants more money spent on the Space Force and an expansion of our military into space. And that's the psychological operation, that we need to create this enemy, this sort of benevolent, these benevolent beings that have been here sharing technology with us, as Dr. Mike Asala reports, and even his brand new book on this exact subject. We've been collaborating with them for decades. High-level members of the military have been collaborating with them for decades. Now, suddenly, they're an enemy? That's the psychological operation. That's the way I see it. Am I wrong or right?
That's exactly right. What's funny is I actually, last night, I saw your wife actually say what this really is. I think by accident, because
she's been around me too much. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's exactly this. She said, I only am concerned about things when it shows the global governance coming together with the military industrial complex. That's exactly what this is. And that's why this movement has so much power, so much resources behind it. And they may possibly be doing what we used to call in the old days, we used to call it triangulation. The Clintons actually made this into an art form where they would actually control their advocacy, but then they would also control the enemy as well, the supposed enemy. And they would have both sides fighting against each other, but then actually both sides would actually be working towards the same goal. And I think that we may possibly be seeing that here as well, where we have the whistle.
I'm going to pause it right there because he talks so slow. I'm going to fall asleep. But I think, but it's a great clip, and there's another 4 minutes left on it. I'm going to put it in the Discord. If you want to be a part of that Discord, go to patreon.com/strangenormal. This isn't going away, folks. You're going to want to be daily in on what's happening here. We are all a part of that. Mikey, Eric, Matthew, because we want to help contribute and try to continue this message, which all we're doing is advertising the documentary, starfallmovie.com. So let's continue this passion and to reach more people. So that was John D'Souza. He was the fascinating guy because he the FBI came to him. No. It was the Hollywood came to him because he had done some paranormal cases in the FBI, which became the first season of the X-Files. And so he has a few comments on this. That's all that was.
That was a very awesome clip because I believe what they're saying. And we've talked about this on other shows. I put it in the documentary that I made, but anybody that's here that hasn't heard this, when I say they're setting the stage, I think there's a lot of elements to what that stage is doing, but a huge one, which I think is they're building weapons pointed towards space or the heavens, because the Bible says that 3 unclean spirits like frogs are going to unite the militaries of the world to fight against Christ when he returns. if we are Bible-believing Christians who believe in prophecy, then that is really going to happen. How are we going to get to a point where literally the militaries of the world unite together and fight against Christ coming? You have to have some kind of propaganda like this. The boogeyman, they're constantly on the news saying, oh, a meteorite, an asteroid is coming so close to Earth. Never happens, but they say it over and over. Oh, we've been seeing things in the sky for years. When, 2 or 3 years ago, they explained it all away with swamp gas weather balloons. Now they're saying we've been seeing it for years. They created the Space Force in 2019, and they're giving us a legitimate reason. They're creating a legitimate reason so the public doesn't say, why are we wasting government money on pointing weapons to space? There's nothing coming from space. They have to have a legitimate excuse to build weapons pointed towards Christ when he returns. And these people might be deceived themselves. I believe that the military are deceived in thinking that we have to defend Earth against an evil alien invader. But in reality, that alien invader is Christ with all of his angels, who's going to return to Earth, take his bride, and if you are not on his side, you will be destroyed no matter how big your Space Force is. But that's what I think is happening.
Let me read that verse before you go into that, Eric. Let me read that verse that he brought up, Revelation 16, verse 13 and 14. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon and out of the mouth of the beast and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they were spirits of devils, working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and to the whole world. So 2 things, to the leaders and to the common people, to gather them for the battle of that great day of God Almighty. Anyway, Eric, you're going to say.
And the kings lead militaries. When you're talking about kings in battle, you're talking about the military. Man, it's all happening, man.
Well, that brings up a good point, because I've heard that theory, like the whole deep underground military bases where they have actual demons, where you can't say Jesus Christ even if you stub your toe or something like that. There's stories like that. And it kind of makes me think of Job, about how Satan was not allowed to do certain things, and then he got more and more permission as it went on to do things to Job. And Scripture tells us that God is going to withdraw his protection at us right before the end. He's going to withdraw from the world. And so while I agree that most of what you see now, like the UFOs and things like that, those are manifestations. There's some kind of trickery going on. But in order to convince, because people, in the military, even though they may be deceived, they're not completely stupid. It's like, if you tell them we're going to fight against these alien invaders, and we look around with wheeled vehicles and airplanes that need airfoils to stay in there, they're going to be like, how are we going to do that with this primitive technology? So to me, it makes sense that they would have to give them some kind of advanced technology that you could plausibly fight an alien invasion with.
Wow.
And there's kind of like there's two options as far as, do they actually have a craft that they're reverse engineering? Either one, there's an empty hangar with nothing in it and it's just a deception, they're making up a story, or 2, there is some kind of physical object that at least the humans, they may be deceived, but they at least believe that this is from an extraterrestrial source, it's advanced, and we're trying to figure out how it works. But that's my take on it.
Fascinating. I never thought about that.
That's my theory too. I don't, this isn't like turn to this book, turn to this chapter. I can't show you in the Bible that this is, Bible facts. But when it says that these unclean spirits are the ones that are rounding up the militaries, and they look like frogs, coincidentally, like alien grays, they are the ones that are gathering them to fight. So I think Satan is playing both sides. He's the one that's mutilating cattle. He's the one that's, giving brain damage to certain military and stuff. He's the one that's playing the bad guy. But then the good aliens, quote unquote, are going to come and say, we know that your planet is going to be destroyed by an alien invader. We have come here to help you fight in that battle, and you will not win unless we help you. And really, it's Satan and his fallen angels helping the world fight against Christ and his angels.
Right. It's good cop, bad cop.
And speaking of, so along the good cop, bad cop, and to tie it in with the politics pieces that I mentioned earlier, everybody's freaking out about this WF, the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, how they want to enslave anybody. Satan could potentially get it to the point where it's just about to be implemented, but then these shiny beings come down and say, hey, we have a better way to do things that doesn't involve losing your freedom, you just have to do these set of things that will just so happen to clash with Scripture.
Yeah,
and
they'll promote forgiveness for the World Economic Forum, because they'll say they were scared, they didn't know what to do, they were backed into a corner. Jesus is all about forgiveness, so forgive these guys. They were in a bad way. Let's move forward together under one banner.
Spiritualism.
I do have something to say. Oh, sorry.
No,
sorry,
spiritualism and worship. I think those are the two things it's coming down to. But go ahead.
So, okay, this is something a little unrelated to what's being discussed. I'm about to expose someone.
Uh-oh.
You guys ready? I'm about to expose. I'm about to put him on blast.
Oh,
because
no.
you had mentioned earlier
what are you
going to
do?
John D'Souza. So you said that you thought maybe he was Christian in nature? A little
I
Christian
thought.
leaning?
I mean, he has a couple books in the background.
Yes, he does. And that book that I saw, I looked it up. Clear Hearers is a book by John D'Souza, and I'd just like to read this little description of it. It won't take very long, but I think it'll be very revealing as to what he believes.
Oh, great.
The Clear Hearers is the story of an investigation. It is the true story of visitation and messages from an incredibly powerful source. It recounts the author's lifelong investigation into the identity of the Great Voice, and it depicts the struggles of many clear hearers, historical figures who experienced the Great Voice throughout their lives. Yet, it becomes clear that the reality of the Great Voice will never be revealed by leaders of society, but only clear hearers who live alongside us every day. By letting go of the past answers that give people comfort, parentheses, that the Great Voice is God, the angels, or spirits of the dead, we can move forward together and root out the true identity of that Great Voice. Once the truth is unfolded, there will be a new voice in the paranormal, one that has been there all along.
Do I see red flags in the chat?
Yeah,
I see some red flags.
Our chat is sleeping. We're doing this like 3-hour show, and where's the flags?
It makes me think about all these Disney movies. Scotty had just given a presentation, and we made a video out of it about witchcraft in Disney, and it was like Frozen. She hears a voice in the middle of the night. Oh, I'm told that this voice is bad, but something about it makes me feel like it's good, and I want to go with you into the unknown and all this. And then Moana, same thing. She's talking to her dead grandma who's saying, oh, listen to the voice and all this stuff. And then Pocahontas, oh, the wind, I hear it. All these programming your children, when you hear the voice of the spirits of the wind and of the wind, earth, air, fire, and water, listen to them. These are good voices.
I hear the naysayers in the chat though. They're saying, but Samuel heard a voice. What's the difference between Samuel and this guy? I think it has something to do with being alive.
The message.
The message, yeah.
Wait.
Did Samuel's dead grandmother tell him that was?
About Saul.
Oh no, Samuel. No, here I am. What did he say to God? He went to his.
Here am I.
Here am I. Your servants. Speak.
As a young boy. Yeah.
So
no. And
I
the
think it's
cover of
message.
that book too. Look up the cover of that book, people. It's
What's it
a
called
guy
again?
meditating. Clear hearers. Look at the cover. It's nuts. It's a guy meditating. He's right in that little lotus position. He's got like his hands up like this.
Oh my!
He's got fire. He's engulfed in flame.
In the
ironically,
elements.
right? Like what happens and ultimately to people who practice this stuff? You end up on fire. You're combustible.
Wow.
He's got
one thing John D'Souza does well is he's got his hands like for the camera. I got to figure out how to do that because I'm like down here gesticulating while I'm talking, and like, I feel like Ricky
thinking the body language,
like, you know.
The body language guy would have a field day because he's got it. He's got it down to an art form.
Okay. We got to get through. We have 2 more sections to get through, and not a lot of videos, but we're going to talk about what people are saying. This is a funny clip. There was a gathering of ufologists this week. They were doing a final podcast, and they got a microphone in their hand. These are all the ancient ufologists, and I say it that way because these guys are the old
OGs.
guys, the OGs of ufology,
Yeah.
and they're all gathered around saying, "I can't believe it! I can't believe." Watch this. This is something. They can't even hold a microphone. It's so exciting. And one guy's going to break out the pizza here pretty soon.
He didn't come forward with, "I'm aware that our missiles were turned off." He came forward with something even more heavy, and that is, "I am fully aware we have been re-engineering ET technology or non-human intelligence technology for years with a great deal of money." That's big. That's as big as it gets. And so I don't know how fast things are going now, but I'm getting my champagne in. I'm ordering pizza because I expect to be celebrating disclosure pretty soon.
And just to add, because there were 3 very vital words today that we have never seen before. Craft of non-human origin. This is the very first time that has been stated from an official.
I want to ask Richard Dolan, who wrote the book After Disclosure. Are we in the post-disclosure age, and it fits your vision of what will happen and also what rolls out from here, Richard?
It is fascinating, I have to say. I wasn't expecting this to happen today. I'm just going to fully say that. Bryce Zabel and I wrote After Disclosure 13 years ago, and our vision, this is in 2010, was that disclosure would happen like an avalanche. So like some big thing would happen, a leak would occur, and it would become obvious that UFOs were real, and shoom, everything would just come crashing down. And in 2017, that did not happen.
Right.
So instead, you had a major revelation that ATIP existed, the Tic Tac existed, and it felt like disclosure at the time, but then things just kind of stalled. And I think what ended up happening, what was different from our original vision, is that I feel, anyway, there was greater centralized control over the media, which was one thing. But I think we also underestimated the ability of the establishment, if we could say that, to maintain narrative control over this. So it was very obvious. And I think what I would say now is that the revelations of today I have proven, at least to me, that what we have been dealing with all along is indeed a faction war. This is what I've always thought, that you have a faction within the intelligence community and the Pentagon that have favored some form of disclosure. I don't think they're favoring full disclosure. I think these are still very establishment types of guys, standard national security concerns, but they do believe in some level of UFO openness, as opposed to the old guard that has dominated this for decades and decades. Is like no disclosure whatsoever. So we're seeing a battle play out, and it's playing out between, in a sense, Congress and the executive branch to some extent also. What's interesting, though, is this latest whistleblower, David Grush, I think his name is pronounced Grush. He has gone, I think, farther even than Lou Elizondo, frankly, in his statements, like much farther. And his basic story, let's just keep this in mind. He was a member of the UAP task force from 2019 to 2021. So he was inside and became aware of the fact that Congress was not receiving UAP data the way it was supposed to, and he determined that this was illegally withheld from Congress. He filed a complaint in 2021 and was then subject to essentially retaliatory attacks against him as a whistleblower, which prompted him then to get attorney assistance and to fight for his rights, which he has apparently won. So this, I mean, there's just a lot going on here.
Grosh came forward. He made it clear that he felt this policy was illegal. And I think he even said immoral, all right? And at that point, when he did that, he became a whistleblower.
Okay. Well, did you hear what they said, though, about the factions? I thought that was fascinating, because what he said was it became clear that there was factions fighting against each other. Well, we know what those factions are. It's religious. And so they're using these funny words to portray what they're saying, but really what they're saying is we're fighting against the religious system that exists in the executive branch is essentially what they're going for, because we know that through Lou Elizondo. Anyway, so they're pretty excited. I have one more collage of this is in the last video. This is a collage of what the propaganda is being pushed out about this from the news anchors, and then let's do some commenting, because this is pretty funny. Here we go.
It's just so crazy to me. Like, I mean, like, we're talking like super sci-fi, like level stuff, like stuff you see in movies, but
it's real life.
This is real life.
Yep. Do you believe it? Are you a believer?
I actually am a believer of aliens.
Okay.
Because like there's billions of planets out there, billions of stars. I mean,
and I'm sure there's so much more that we have no idea what's out there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's like our oceans. We've only discovered like a tiny portion of it.
Exactly.
And who knows? Maybe there's another Earth out there, and maybe there's some little green men that just want to stop by and say hello. Hopefully, they just want to say hello.
Hopefully, just a hello.
So that's the question of the day. Do you believe in aliens?
And some of you already answering. You can join in by scanning the QR code that you see on your screen. There's my uncle. And you can also vote at fox13seattle.com/poll. Do you believe? No way. 0%. Everybody believes. Well, at least some of you need to see some evidence. But 71% chiming in saying they believe.
The universe is so vast, it feels impossible that there's just nothing else, period.
I think that's the argument that I've heard.
Maybe I'll jump in quickly here and just say we did have a hearing. In fact, we've had 2 hearings in the last couple of years on this subject. And I asked a question in the second hearing. I asked, because of course you hear this notion that's been out there forever that the United States government is hiding material, that we're hiding aliens or whatever. I asked a very specific question, which is, do we have any sort of matter, organic or inorganic or whatever, that we can't explain as to its source? Now, this was maybe a year and a half ago, and the answer was an unequivocal no.
Mr. Chairman, obviously part of the story is that they've held it from Congress, from the administration. I mean, it's pretty astonishing if true. Anything to weigh in on?
Brett, this has been a story since the 1960s, really. Every decade there's been individuals who've said that the United States has such pieces of unidentified flying objects that are from outer space. There's no evidence of this, and certainly it would be quite a conspiracy for this to be able to be maintained, especially at this level.
Do you know anything about recovered UFOs? And if not, what is your reaction to that?
This is not a question I had on my bingo card.
The lawmakers we spoke with say they're not aware of a secret UFO recovery program.
I am a defense appropriator. I am part of classified briefings. This is nothing that has come up.
My first reaction is probably like everybody watching, which is wow. And secondly, I'll believe it when I see it.
There will be oversight of that. I've heard about it. I don't know anything about it. But Representative Burchett and Representative Luna on the Oversight Committee are very interested in this issue, and they're taking the lead in this issue.
So there is going to be oversight on this?
We plan on having a hearing pertaining to that whole issue.
I would say I want to hear what he saw and let the committee that's got responsibility for it ask the questions.
Other lawmakers say they want more information.
We'll have to listen to the facts. I've seen no evidence of it whatsoever, and if there are actually aliens or spacecraft that exist in some warehouse, in a government warehouse somewhere, of course, I want to know as much as all of you.
Congressman Dean Phillips.
Ooh, do you believe? More and more interesting, I guess. I mean, something. I don't know what exactly, but something. Okay. I didn't say these aliens look like us. It could be just some little organism, right? Okay. Something like that. Okay. I don't know.
You're a believer.
I don't know what I am. I'm becoming more of one, I guess, as time goes on and we have stories like that. All right, coming up, we're going to...
This guy, all right?
You're a believer.
You know, no. You know my thing is that I don't want to know.
Right. That's true.
Are we alone? And if we were not, would you even tell us?
I would refer that question to the Department of Defense and let them answer that question for you.
Well, the Department of Defense says there is, quote, no verifiable information that the government is trying to reverse engineer extraterrestrial materials.
All kinds of crazy right now. So that's the news anchors. They're all, and not only news anchors, but that's also a lot of officials in Congress. the lady at the end there, the African American lady, what's her position? She's like the answer all for the news anchors in the White House.
I thought that poll was interesting. 0% said no way. But I've seen a video, I looked it up, of a black and white footage of a dude going on the street asking people in the 50s or whatever it was. It was black and white days. And he was asking people, do you believe in aliens? And the majority of the people were saying, no, I don't believe in that sci-fi stuff. And so, in 50 to 70 years or whatever, it's completely flipped. So now it's like 0% say no way. And the majority answer is the universe is just so vast.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. Yeah. The reasoning is the same thing over and over again. It's so vast.
And it also comes to the fact that she mentioned it could be a little organism. It doesn't have to be a big green man. It could be just a little amoeba, and that's life. So yes, I think that's the thing, and that's the evolution talking, because according to evolution, life just magically sprung up out of literally just stuff in a pond, a puddle. Life just decided, let's happen.
And see, as a new believer, when I had first received Christ and I was trying to figure out what to do with this concept, I believed 100% in aliens. I didn't see any conflict in believing, God created this vast universe. Why didn't he create other life out there and all that? But now when I hear all these collages of people saying that, all I can hear is evolution. They're literally speaking evolution. And like we already mentioned earlier, Christ came to earth to die. If there's other worlds out there and they're doing things that aren't perfect, like hurting people, then that's evolution. That's not creation, because then Christ has to go to Mars or wherever to die for them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the indoctrination of evolution has really brainwashed people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
An interesting point that was from one of the videos that was actually linked in the Discord, which you can gain access to by joining the Patreon. Mm-hmm. I was doing this down here with my hands. But they talk about so the Drake equation was what is commonly used. It's like if there's 100 billion planets and only 1% of them have life, and then 1% of those have sentient life and all this, and that's how they come up with these. There must be lots of life out there, and there's this idea of the Goldilocks zone. When they find these planets, it's like, okay, it has to be the right distance away from the star for it to have liquid water on the surface. That's one of the criteria, and apparently they found quite a few of those. But there's also a Goldilocks zone for UV radiation, which, if you know anything about UV radiation, it just destroys life. And that zone is a lot narrower, and apparently most, if not all, of the planets that they found that are in the Goldilocks zone for water are not in the Goldilocks zone for UV life. So, and I'd have to do more digging on that statistic to see, but it just goes to show you it's not as simple as the arguments that are made for evolution. It's not that simple.
And as long as we're talking about that, and I don't want to get into debate on my hair, but I cosmetology. But I do. I think it's interesting to point out that according to the science that we grew up with, I still remember the book in elementary school. There are different types of suns, and so how you've got to account for the different size and radiance of these things. So hopefully, I mean, it's really complicated to figure that out, and so I don't think it's just a one and done thing. I hope they're taking to everything into account if they really are able to find those things. But and besides that, who's to say, and this is my big beef with anything in ufology, who's to say that these beings look like humanoids? Why aren't they? I mean, we know for a fact, because we're Christians, we understand what the Bible says, that these beings could actually be or phase into a different realm. And so who's to say they're not made from dirt? Like us. Who's to say that they're made from photons? What if we're looking in a totally wrong place? What if the word world actually doesn't mean world, but it means realm in the Bible? Anyway, I could get off on a whole different topic here, but
and that's what CERN is for. Next week on Strange Normal.
Crack open CERN.
All right, so check this out. This lady, I think is really funny. She keeps mentioning Bob Lazar.
Laser.
And her narrative is really strong, and she's quite pressuring of how much she's pushing this idea. She's convinced. Check this out.
Last May, Congress held its first hearing on UFOs in over 50 years. Intelligence experts testified at the time about hundreds of encounters with unidentified objects and gave Americans a glimpse into some of the military's apparent run-ins with unidentified aircraft. Now, an Air Force veteran and former high-ranking intelligence official is blowing the whistle on an alleged UFO retrieval program, which he says has been run by the U.S. government for decades. David Grush claims the government is now in possession of partial and fully intact aircraft of non-human origin. And several current members of the program have corroborated some of those allegations with the Office of the Inspector General. Grush says that information on the deeply covert program has been withheld from Congress and is now speaking out about this secretive program. Everyone knows that I'm the one sitting outside with the tinfoil hat, all right? So I love this stuff. I've been reading books about it for years, and I feel that it would be laughable to assume that we know everything, that everything has been not only published, but also would be accessible by the American people. And secondly, against the landscape, this is not a vacuum. We have established a National Reconnaissance Office, an Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, a National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, in addition to Area 51 and Subset S, I think the name of it is. There are so many more. So this isn't out of nowhere. We have, quite frankly, a robust, structured, what we do know about existence within the government of exploring and or processing this. We are in a race with definitely enemy nations like China, for example, to uncover the root of this that could be used for their military benefit. That should be a frightening thought to any American, regardless whether you believe in little green men. And what's partially fascinating about this is he's not the first one. And we know that some of this is being corroborated by other actors here. And the question remains, who then will win this, what he says is a race, an arms race, to discover the origins of this and how we can recreate it. You know, anyone who listens to the Joe Rogan podcast knows that Bob Lazar, for years now, has been saying the exact same thing. His story was incredible about working in a subset of Area 51 and essentially decades ago, yes, being tasked by the U.S. government of reverse engineering a UFO that was hanging out in their hangar. In fact, they had multiple objects of non-human origin that Americans were tasked with. Hey, figure this out. Try to recreate this. And that is exactly what is being said now by this whistleblower also.
So anybody that listens to Bob, to Joe Rogan's podcast doesn't mention
Bob Lazar. Yeah, no, they know his name is Bob Lazar. Obviously, you don't watch it, lady.
She says it twice. I actually cut part of it out, and she says it twice. And I'm like, oh.
I love that she's going on her rant, the looks that the people are giving her. I've seen that look when I talk sometimes. But I trust her. She's wearing a Christian cross, so she...
I was going to point that out, Mikey. I was going to bring that up. Notice how she's the tinfoil hat of the group, and she's got a cross necklace displayed.
Interesting.
You know?
Who's the tinfoil hat of our group? How does that work on Strange Normal?
I think we're all tinfoil.
Can we take a vote in the chat?
Yeah. Tell us who's the tinfoil hat man.
Yeah.
One for Brad, two for me.
It's not a matter of who's got a tinfoil hat, it's who has the thickest tinfoil hat.
That's right.
Who has the best cosmetology?
That's right.
Okay, so since we're talking about...
I would like. Can I moderate a debate on Strange Normal about cosmetology?
I'm all down.
I feel like that would be, yeah.
So
I know. Yeah.
So check this out. Since we're doing Bob Lazar, I thought it'd be good to see what Joe Rogan actually says about Bob Lazar on here real quick. So let's just see a short clip of what he says. 2-minute clip on Bob Lazar.
This is what Bob Lazar has been saying forever. This guy's saying that it was going on for 80 years. So, like, this brings us back to the 1940s. I mean, this means like Roswell. This is what they were talking about when all the people that were at Roswell, that were at the actual crash site and the actual claim they saw bodies. And then there was 2 different aircrafts that were flown in to Roswell, New Mexico, and took the wreckage and flew it in 2 different aircrafts in case one of them crashed, supposedly. And they flew them to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This has all been documented. Now, if that was a balloon, it was just a balloon, why would they go through such lengths? And why are there so many people that have so many stories about Roswell? Well, that's what Bob Lazar said was the problem with the back engineering program. He said that science can't exist like that in a vacuum, and the propulsion experts were not allowed to talk to the metallurgists. The metallurgy experts were not allowed to talk to the biology experts. He said if they really did have physical bodies, the people that were working on the propulsion system had no knowledge of that, weren't allowed to talk about it. But there was all chatter. Everyone would talk about things. And apparently there was some sort of a debriefing they gave them, and in that debriefing he said it was so nuts. He said, first of all, they said they've been coming here forever, and they also said that we're a product of accelerated evolution, which is wild as fuck.
Yeah.
That human beings in general, why we are so different from all the other primates. I mean, that's always been the fucking conspiracy theory folklore. That's the fun one, is that they came down. That's the Anunnaki that came down here and messed around with lower primate DNA and did something to it to create a human being.
I'm here for it.
I'm here for that.
Yeah.
That would make everything fun. And then I would think that the government would want stuff like this to come out if they were in the middle of like stealing money or doing something really wild.
The classic misdirection?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, if you're going to take something that gets rid of a certain amendment, or you're going to do something that allows you to infringe on rights or to impose some new sort of restrictions. And
bring the aliens out.
Yeah, bring the aliens out.
So, although I don't agree with them with the idea of primates and us being seated here on Earth, that's the general lore of ufology. Like you said, the Anunnaki idea. He is right at the end there that if you did want to bring this out,
most conspiracy theorists know that there's a new world order coming. How are you going to do that? Reagan said, "How could we all unite an alien threat?" I mean, he told the plan right there.
Okay, we're down to our last 2 videos. Normally I don't say that, but I feel I must because it's midnight here on the East Coast, and we only have 2 videos left. These are the most interesting ones because they happened last week. This one in particular happened in Las Vegas. If you guys have already seen this, you won't be surprised, but if you haven't seen this, it was weird. It was weird. And let me preface it with
Vegas.
It's Vegas. I know, whatever stays in Vegas. All right. So I'm just gonna say, check this out. This is something. I'm not gonna say anything else.
It is the police call everybody will be talking about. Thanks for joining us here at 6 o'clock. I'm Denise Valdez.
I'm Brian Loftus. A family says something crashed into their backyard, prompting them to call 911, saying they saw creatures walking around.
Our 8 News Now investigators digging into this for weeks now. And tonight, our David Sharns with the video you will only see on 8 News Now. David?
Right, Denise, sources telling the 8 News Now investigators that several agencies believe something landed or crashed. Whether it was non-humans or not, it certainly scared the people living on this property. Now, before we show you that video, listen to their call for help.
There's like an 8-foot person beside it, and another one's inside, and it has big eyes and looking at us, and it's still there.
Okay, where is this on your property?
In my backyard. I swear to God, this is not a joke. This is actually, we're terrified of it.
So there's 2 people or 2 subjects that are in your backyard?
Correct, and they're very large. They're like 8 foot, 9 feet, 10 foot. I don't know. They look like aliens to us. Big eyes. They have big eyes, like I can't explain it. And big mouth. They're shiny eyes, and they're not human. They're 100% they're not human.
Okay.
Well, the 8 News Now investigators obtaining video as officers then responded to the call you just heard. You'll see the officers also saw something in the sky that night, but the big question is, what was it, and is it all connected?
Leave her alone.
It's almost midnight on May 1st when a Las Vegas Metro police officer's body cam catches this, something flashing low in the sky.
911 emergency.
Minutes later,
There's like an 8-foot person beside it, and another one's inside, and it has big eyes and looking at us, and it's still there.
someone calls 911 reporting two large figures in their backyard.
No, I'm so nervous right now.
The 8 News Now investigators obtaining another officer's video as he's sent to the Northwest Valley home.
I have butterflies, bro. Everyone saw a shooting star, then these people say there's aliens in their backyard.
By now, it's more than an hour after that bright light. Officers meeting up with the caller and his family.
What'd you see?
It was like a big creature.
A big creature?
Yeah, like around 10 feet tall.
I'm not going to BS you guys. One of my partners said they saw something fall out of the sky too, so that's why I'm kind of curious. Did you see anything land in your backyard, or?
They see like a big, that's what they say. They see like a big something with light.
What I saw right now, I do believe in it.
Police walk into the backyard to investigate, but Metro blacked out that part of the video because it's considered private property. What's clear, they're taking this call seriously.
Hey, this might sound like a really dumb question, but did you guys see anything fall out of the sky?
Asking others what they saw.
I would normally discount it as nothing. However, seeing as one of my partners said they saw it too, only reason I'm actually investigating it further.
That investigation turning up no concrete answers as of Wednesday. Whatever or whoever fell into that yard, long gone within minutes.
Oh, hey. If those 9-foot beings come back, don't call us, all right? Deal with it yourself. I ain't dealing with that.
So yeah, this is quite weird, Brian was saying as we're watching this story. Now, we've been in contact with the family in that video, and as you heard in that 911 call, they seem very reasonable and honestly quite scared as you heard them in the call. No, they don't seem impaired in any way. And whatever crashed by the time that police got there was gone, but sources say that there's really no dispute. Something was in their yard. Exactly what? We do not know.
I mean, it's so interesting. So, like, the Metro officer sees something, the neighbor sees something. I mean, so what could it be?
Well, we know that there are obviously a lot of military bases around this area. George Knapp covers a lot of that stuff for us on the 8 News Now investigators. We're showing you drone video from above that area. And we know, of course, Creech not far away, Nellis Air Force Base not far. I checked in with them. They say they are not involved at all, and we are waiting to hear from the Pentagon as well.
And you talked to these people. It seemed completely legitimate to you. And do you have any personal thoughts on maybe what it was?
Right. So it seems from talking to our sources that something happened. There was obviously some flash in the sky. A lot of people saw it that night on the night of April 30th, early in the morning on May 1st. Did that exact thing land in their yard? I don't know. But these people said they saw some SUV circling the area. Could this have been some piece of equipment that malfunctioned? Maybe they saw something and then someone came. I can't believe we're talking about this.
Right.
Someone came and retrieved it from the backyard in the SUV. We don't know. This all comes as a former high-level intelligence officer, a veteran, was on News Nation talking about how there is a program where the government collects some unidentified objects. So this might be that. We just don't know. We're going to work to find out, though.
And
Brian,
no substances. They were looking with clear eyes. Good.
Very interesting.
Not big buggy eyes, though.
This is really unique. Thank you, David.
So what I think is fascinating about that is that even though there's no substances involved, who knows? Maybe they were playing with a Ouija board. Maybe you invite these things in, and they might not have jurisdiction over you now. You can invite them to, but we still have absolute protection if we follow Jesus Christ. So there is going to be some crazy stuff happening, and I don't think that this is slowing down at all. What do you guys think?
Nope. It's the beginning.
I thought of Jason December's account of how he was trying when he was seeing UFOs, and he was trying to get the police to look, and this was in, I think, Los Angeles, and they wouldn't look. It's like they were in on it or something like that. This is kind of maybe by locale or something, you know. I don't know how it works, but these cops seem to be really like have no problem talking about it or investigating it. Then it would seem like you go other places and it's like they already know. They don't, kind of like the whole, these things are demonic. Don't look at this, Lou. So.
100%. Smash that like button if you enjoyed this program. We got one more video. It's 20 seconds long, but we're at 90 likes. If we can get up to 100, I appreciate it. 10 more likes. Come on, guys. Let's get up to 100 tonight before we end the program.
If we hit 100 likes, Brad will do a giveaway.
How about okay?
He'll
yeah, I
away
can do
some
that.
merch.
Yeah.
So
Who's it gonna go
let's
to?
make it happen. He'll do a little
I will.
test in the thing. He's a veteran at this.
I can do
giveaway
this.
stuff.
Okay. Let's play this clip. This is from Nick Pope, and I think he's one of the guys that are in on the thing. He's unfortunately going to be. He's admitting to it in this clip. Check this out.
It's a really difficult story to untangle. It sounds bizarre, but sometimes these bizarre things turn out to be true. Let's try and get to the truth. And NASA are working on this, of course, and the DoD too. Let's see what unfolds. But more revelations will come in the next few days and weeks. I know that for a fact.
He knows that for a fact. More revelations in the next week, so better stay tuned to Strange Normal. Hit that subscribe button because we're going to cover every nuance of this thing. This was a unique program tonight. We don't usually go this long, but I'm glad we got as much in as possible because this was a fun week. I'm seeing 97 likes.
Can you do a special bonus clip? I know this is a strange request. You can say no, but I sent you a video. I think it's like maybe 2 minutes, maybe less, in Facebook. This is something that I grabbed from a VHS that I recorded from television of the Roswell. And I was watching it one day and I was like, dude, I got to put this on my page because I really would have liked to see it like right after that Joe Rogan talking thing because it goes with some of the stuff they were talking about, misinformation, disinformation. But I just think it's interesting. So this is the Roswell movie. Are you going to play it, Brad?
I'm working on downloading it right now from Facebook.
Okay.
Just a second. Keep going.
So this is from the movie about the Roswell incident, and they show how the guy really saw something, but then he was, forced to pose with this tin foil. Like they really showed it from that angle. Like they were telling him, no, this is what you saw, and you will, hold this tin foil for the picture and a weather balloon. But before that, when he saw it, it was showing it like he was holding it in his hand and it was automatically like folding and stuff. Like it shows the viewer like this, he really saw something and what they were doing was covering it up. But this like scenery, the scene that's fixing to show, it's like a round table with these elites and they're discussing how to hide the truth about aliens and all that, and how we can use this source to let out misinformation and this one for disinformation. And we'll even put out true information from from uncredible sources to make people not believe it. It really shows you the psychological warfare that these military people use.
I'm pulling it in right now. Okay. Let's see just a second here. Here it is. A minute 39. Yeah, I can do that. All right, so here it is.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, let me cue that up. It's a little bit of work just to make sure this is on there. There we go. All right, here we go. Here it is.
Under what agency will we be operating?
None. We will have complete control.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
And our mandate exactly? To investigate the event and all of its implications. The technology. And any other such events, should they occur. But most of all, to safeguard the public interest. That's why this information has to be so carefully controlled. You think of our religious institutions. I mean, if this were all to just come out, what are people going to believe in?
Not to mention the effect on our social and our political institutions. Even the military.
Especially the military. I mean, what the hell are we dealing with here? Is it friendly? Is it hostile?
Maybe it's neither. Maybe they're just studying us the way we study insects.
Well, the point is, there could be panic if this all came out. And we're supposed to ensure domestic tranquility, not eliminate it. I mean, what if people think that we are not in control of the skies?
They'd be right. What about leaks? Someone's bound to say something.
Well, as long as we control the way the information is released, leaks shouldn't necessarily hurt us.
In fact, mingled with a little well-placed disinformation, they should help. Hoaxes.
Oh, yes, certainly. And also accurate information released from less than reputable sources. Well, that's not such a bad technique either.
Recruit a group of crackpots. Exactly. Gentlemen, if you'd open the folders in front of you.
Oh, what in the world?
Wow.
I have never seen
I
that.
think this is true. I think like people like Alex Jones, who I bought into that in 2012, 2013. I was like all into Alex Jones stuff because the things that he says is like, you know, what is it called? Declassified. Like he can prove everything through paperwork and all that. But over the years, I've started to think that he was kind of like a double agent or something because, you know, he's saying real things, but he's such a, like, they're turning the frogs gay. You know, it's like he sounds so crazy that it discredits what he's saying. And people are like, oh, you listen to that idiot or whatever. It's like Men in Black said, the truth is in the National Enquirer, you know?
That's something.
Yeah, a funny thing about Alex Jones, there's a crossover between Alex Jones and Joe Rogan. Alex Jones has been on Joe Rogan's podcast. And not only that, Alex Jones got a little, it seemed like some whiskey in him, and maybe he took a couple of puffs off of something that made him loose, because he started saying, Joe was asking him, like, okay, what do you know about the, like, I don't know, underground stuff? And he's just like, oh, Joe, you know, don't play stupid. You know better than I do. You've got all the sources. Like, that was his response. And Joe Rogan's like, come on, man, like, play along with me here. Like, let's do this. It's a funny interaction.
Yeah, Joe, you're a Mason, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Joe Rogan knows way more than he lets on, for sure. And I believe Alex Jones does, too.
But he's so deceived with that center eye on his logo and everything. I feel bad for the guy. Speaking of that, before we pray ourselves out, I do want to pray for Matt Walsh and them specifically. But I want to do a giveaway because we did hit 101 likes, and so
you guys
get ready.
Are awesome.
Thank you guys so much. Get ready with your keyboards. Get your keyboards out. You might want to pull that scroll bar all the way to the front because you want to be on this and the most current, because if you don't hear me say the letter immediately, you might not get it. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds to do that. And once you have done that, I'm going to get you your phone. If you have your phones out, make sure you get your keyboard ready. I'm going to give you a letter. That letter is going to be letter V as in victory. 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 Hit the letter V. V as in victory. Oh.
Nice occult hand sign there, Mikey.
Oh. Sorry.
Yeah. No, he just flashed his allegiance. That's it.
Wow. People are on it. Okay. What do you guys see? I want to see. I see Kalito on mine, and then John.
I've got Kalito and then John on mine as well.
Okay.
With Aaliyah saying burger in between. I don't know what that's about.
Kalito, yeah.
That's the secret word.
All right. Send me your address to bradburnham@protonmail.com. I'll put it in the chat, and I'll send you Joe Jordan's book. I still got a few, and we'll go from there. And if I haven't sent you that yet, it's my fault. I just haven't gotten to the post office because they hate me. Because last time I brought them like 30 books, and I stood the line up, so they weren't happy with me. So I haven't been back.
Well, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to do a different protocol that way?
Oh man, I didn't know what to do. That's like old school stuff. Snail mail. Who uses that anymore? It was a learning experience for me. But I'll do it again. Maybe it's a new guy this time. But send me your address. I'll send you a book, and we'll go from there. And a few cards too. So, who wants to pray us out? I can do it, or someone else can. I'll do it. Okay. All right, you go. Pray for Matt specifically in the that group.
Awesome. Lord, Father in heaven, we just thank you so much for this opportunity to get to gather together and to talk about the things that we're seeing going on in the world, Lord. And we thank you for giving us eyes to see and ears to hear. I know that I was greatly deceived by this whole ancient aliens concept, and I know that this deception is getting worse and worse, Lord. So I just pray for everyone that's in the stream now, everyone that's going to see this video. I pray that somebody will stumble upon this that's never heard this position before, and that it'll begin to make the wheels turn, Lord. All we can do is scatter the seeds, but we pray that you will do the watering, Lord, that you will do the harvesting, and just continue to inspire us and give us words of wisdom to keep doing this show. And Lord, we want to lift up Matt Walsh to you, Lord. He's a believer, and it just seems like he's kind of led astray with this whole subject of what's going on, Lord. So I pray that somehow we'll be able to reach him, that he'll be able to watch the documentary or stumble upon the channel, or maybe even be a guest on the show, Lord. Whatever it is, I just pray that this truth that you've given us will get to him, and that he will actually consider it, Lord, and that it would change his life around. He's got a big platform, and I just pray that you'll use him to be a shining light, Lord, that he'll be able to spread this message far and wide. And along with him, we want to lift up Joe Rogan, another person that I believe is a true truth seeker, but probably just does not want to surrender to you, Lord. So I just pray that you would put influence in his life that will be able to win his heart over, that will be able to be a shining light, and that he'll be drawn to you through them, Lord. And we just thank you and love you for all that you do, and we just look forward to your soon return, Lord. It's clear that we are in the last days, so we just pray that you help us to be ready. And in the meantime, we'll just keep trying to spread this message. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks for staying up with me, guys. Matthew, Eric, Mikey, thank you so much.
It was a blast.
Absolutely. And don't forget, go to the community tab and look at some of the polls, because we got some very interesting polls. I'm trying to get to know my audience here. We look forward to the day where we get to see you guys in person in heaven. Please be there. Okay, everyone. I'm Brad Burnham. This has been Pure Strangeness, Absolute Normalcy, Strange Normal. See you next time. Thanks for watching this segment. Subscribe to our channel and join us every Thursday night for more daily strange topics and more. Find us on Discord by accessing patreon.com/strangenormal. See you there.